share the screen?
Hey there, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Corey. You can hear us? Okay, he is? Oh, he got to turn my mic on.
Are you turning your mic on? Not till you
They
speak.
all went on. They just all went on.
Oh, there's Tom. I'd like to call the September 21st, 2021 monthly work session to order. First on the agenda is the strategic plan. Dr. Asplin.
Yes, good morning. Good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning, board members. The first item on our agenda for our work session today is our strategic plan. And I know we have Corey Gordon on the line as well, zooming in from Washington. So thank you for being with us, Corey. As you know, we have contracted with a company called Deliver Ed, and they've been working with us since February as we have created our strategic plan. Right now, it's in draft form, as you know, and it's in draft form so that we can get additional feedback and make revisions as necessary. I do want to say thank you to our staff. Our staff has done an amazing job on the strategic plan, especially during this time of a pandemic and all the issues that we've dealt with regarding that, and being able to work what they normally do every single day, but also help to create the strategic plan. They spent hours and hours, weekends, nights, trying to get this all ready for today so we could move forward. So I really appreciate everything that the staff has done. So thank you so much. Also, I want to thank our community. The town hall meetings were very helpful. The information that we obtained during that time helped us as we were creating our 5 goals and our strategies. So thank you to our community and to the other staff out there in our schools. Really appreciate all that they did and the information they provided. This process has helped us quite a bit as far as not working in silos. So, you know, we have all of our different departments and our different schools, but this has really helped us to come together even more and work together more across departments and eliminate the silos. So it's been fantastic. Also, as you know, the strategic plan is a roadmap. It's a roadmap that could change as we move forward, depending on how we're doing along the way and the progress monitoring that we go through throughout the year. So I just want everybody to keep that in mind. It is a working document, and we may have to make changes as we go along. Again, using feedback, using data as we go through the first year and then through our 5 years. So with that, we have 2 hours. We have 2 hours to get through probably 4 hours worth of material. And so we're going to work as fast as we can. What we're going to do is after each goal, we will stop and allow you as a board to ask questions, give feedback, and then we'll go on to the second goal. Remember, there's 5 of those. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Corey just very quickly so that she can say a few things, and then we'll get started with goal number 1. Corey?
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Asplin. Can you all hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, great. It's great to be with you all this morning. I wish I could be there with you for real, but this will have to do. I just want to echo what Dr. Asplin said about the amount of work and thought and collaboration that has gone into this plan. You're only going to see today the tip of the iceberg. There's a great deal more detail in terms of additional data points, timelines, responsibilities that is outlined in an internal kind of progress monitoring type document. So what we're sharing with you today is the major content, but the team has done a lot more thinking about the implementation side of things, which I know you've heard me harping on since the beginning of this process. So to echo what Dr. Asplin has said, just an incredible amount of work that the team has done on top of the incredible amount of work they're already doing just to keep schools safe and open right now. So I really want to give the credit to the team. My job really has been to facilitate, to bring some new ideas, to push thinking, and really just to remind people to stay focused on this work. One of the greatest benefits of having a strategic plan like this, and I heard this in a conversation with one of your colleagues last week, was, you know, frankly, The only time I've been talking about academics has been when we've been talking about the strategic plan lately. And that's exactly the purpose that we want this plan to serve. We want it to serve the purpose, even and especially in challenging times, of keeping us focused on these things that we've said are the most critical priorities for our work. And so that is exactly what we want this plan to do. I believe it's what this plan will do. And I'm incredibly impressed by the amount of work and thought that's been put into it and the exciting ideas that the team has about how to move the district forward. As Dr. Asplund said, we built much of this plan on the feedback and the input from the community in Sarasota. It is one of the greatest strengths of the Sarasota County School District. And so we absolutely leveraged that as we identified our priorities and built out our plan. It is a living and breathing document. We believe these are the right priorities for the next 5 years, but as we all have learned, things shift very quickly. And so we've built the plan intentionally in a flexible way, so such that we can adjust course as things change and as new needs emerge to be responsive to the world that we are living and working in. And so you'll see that as well in the plan. We want it to be obviously set a direction for us that we don't waver from, but also to allow us to make adjustments as we discover what's working and what's not. And so the team has been really intentional about involving folks from across the district at the school level, at various sections of the organization, cross sections of the organization, to make sure that we are representing the full picture of what it's going to take to make this work happen and to make these changes happen on behalf of the students of Sarasota. So we are going to spend, as Dr. Asplund said, some time thinking about each of the goals. One of the approaches or the main differentiators of the approach that we take to strategic planning is we believe that it's important to have someone who's accountable for each of the goals of the plan, a district leader who's really going to be the one overseeing implementation, having those conversations about progress, adjusting course when things go off track inevitably. And so these people that you'll see this morning have been designated as goal leads, and they have had the responsibility of managing a team of folks to develop the detailed plans that live underneath what you're going to see today. And I'll show an example of that in just a second, so you can just see kind of all of the things that we're thinking about beyond what's in the sort of public-facing streamlined version of the plan. So these goal leads are ultimately the ones who will regularly through the year sit in front of Dr. Asplund and share out what we're seeing in terms of progress, as well as in the board meetings that we update you on the strategic plan, holding that ownership for the outcomes of the strategic plan. So we really are trying to shift from sort of just checking off that we are doing things towards really holding ourselves accountable for outcomes. And so you'll see that in the plan as well. And really, as the board, that is where we want to hear most of your feedback is really, are these the right areas of focus? You've heard us talk about these goal areas and I think felt good about them in our last meeting. Now we're going to give you some more detail about how we're going to measure success and what strategies we're going to prioritize. And we'd certainly love your feedback on whether those metrics make sense. Those metrics are the metrics we're going to hold ourselves accountable for, and also, will be integrated into the conversations you have about Dr. Asplund's performance as a superintendent, because ultimately he is the accountable owner for the entire plan. So with that said, I want to share real quickly before we jump into the document that you all have seen. I want to share real quickly some detail around what's behind all of what you're going to see today. So you've seen the document for today's conversation that looks like this, that has Craig's team, the communications team did a fantastic job of really putting together a quality document. And so we're going to walk through each of the goals in this document in just a moment. But what I want you to see before we do that is just that there is more information that lives in what we call the PIM, which is the Planning, Implementation, and Monitoring Tool. And in this PIM, you'll see that we've articulated for each of the goals, we've articulated what our trajectory is, so our year-over-year targets for each of these metrics that you're going to see today. So in the plan, you see the 5-year target, but we also have articulated year-over-year targets that will be aligned to, of course, the evaluation that you conduct with Dr. Asplund. And then for each of the strategies, there is a great deal more detail that lives in this document that articulates additional progress monitoring data that will be captured at the strategy level, activities that you see. And for each of those activities, what is our timeline? So you can see here, our timeline for each of these activities articulates when we hope to complete year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, and year 5, what we hope to complete in each year. And then when we do these progress monitoring conversations, there'll be a chance for us to update the status. So each of the strategy leads will be required to update, are we on track, off track? Have we completed these milestones as we intended when we built the plan? And this is where a lot of the living document will live, in the sense that many of these milestones right now are projections of what we hope to achieve, but we will be constantly coming back to and updating this document as time goes on. There's also a portion of detail for each of the strategies where we articulate the key stakeholders and all of their roles, as well as the resources required in terms of people, money, and technology, and then any other resources. So part of what the team is still working on and ironing out behind the scenes is what these resource requests look like, how we're going to iron out what's possible and what's not possible, and how we're going to make this work happen. So as I said, delivery and our approach is really focused on implementation. And so that's why we've done all of this good thinking and continue to do all of this good thinking about how we're actually going to make this happen. Many strategic plans that you'll see out there stop at this level of detail. But the reality is we think the plan is important, but it's only the beginning. We really can't rest on our laurels and say, okay, we finished that strategic plan, check, right? We really have to believe that we're going to implement it. We have to hold ourselves to it. And so that document I just shared with you is really what's going to make the difference in terms of holding ourselves to account for implementation of this plan that we've done such a good job and such thoughtful engagement to develop. I'm going to pause there before we jump into the details. Are there any questions about the process or what I just shared?
Karen?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just real quick, the document you just went over is probably one of the most important for me, but it's not very legible. Will we get something that is at our fingertips as board members that that can easily be read? That one is...
Yes. Yes. So like I said, that document is intentionally not part of this public version because, like you said, it's a lot. It's too much, frankly, for sort of the public to digest. But for you all as board members, we will create a version or find a way to create a more visible version of the pieces that are most critical for you, those year-over-year targets in particular.
So those year-over-year targets, I would like to have what principals and Dr. Asplin is following. I don't, as an individual board member, don't want a reduced version. I would like to have the full document, please, and that would be fantastic as an individual request.
Yep. Got it.
Thank you very much.
And that's the only question.
Okay, great. Dr. Asplin, anything else you want to say before we turn it over to Chris, who's going to do our Goal 1 overview?
No, thank you. Yeah, thank you very much, Corey, for all that information. And yes, we are at limited time, so we do need to get started with that. Thank you.
Yep. Great. All right. So, Chris, do you want me to share from here, Chris, or are you going to share from a different spot?
I'm just going to be able to provide an overview. If I believe everybody has a copy of the document that you have showing on the screen right now, so I will reference that.
Perfect. Great. All right.
Did you put your mic on?
Yep, I believe it's on. Sorry, I was looking at the screen. So, all right. So if we're ready to get started. So I wanted to say good morning. It's really an honor to be here this morning to share an overview of what Corey just mentioned is a work in progress related to Goal 1, the academics, instruction, and professional learning with you all today. This work really represents the thoughts, the perspectives, and the strategies to address pressing areas that had previously been identified by a varied group of stakeholders, including our school leaders, our teachers, our curriculum specialists, and members of our community. With me today are our strategy leads. They are the experts, so if you do have questions afterwards, that's why they are here, because they're eager to go ahead and elaborate on the strategies that I will speak to in just a moment. Their leadership, their expertise, and their collaboration really facilitated the thinking and the information gathering that made this all possible. So I have Tracy Cardenas. Tracy is Strategy 1, Tammy Castles, Strategy 2, Carol Brown and Mary Ellen Asplin, Strategy 3, Brian Hirsch, Strategy 4, and Trip Jennings, Strategy 5. Other valued members of the team included, of course, our executive directors, our curriculum directors, principals, varied stakeholders that our strategy leads reached out to throughout the process, but also especially Principal Cindy Throw and Dr. LaShawn Frost. In an effort to honor your time, I promise to keep this under 45 minutes. Just kidding. So we will move along. I will provide a brief overview that really addresses the unique journey of each student from pre-K to graduation and beyond. Goal 1, personalized learning and accelerate growth for all students. We must, and I can't help but emphasize must, reach, connect, and help every student reach their fullest potential. We know that starts with relationships with students and partnerships with parents. We have to establish clear, high expectations for teaching and learning. We have to enhance our collaborative efforts to use data, student work to guide our instructional planning. We have to provide high quality, standards-based, engaging, and accelerated instruction. We have to personalize academic, emotional, and/or behavioral support as needed. And in the end, our goal is to prepare all students for their future. We've identified 3 North Star metrics to guide this work. First, increasing grade 3 reading proficiency. Why? Because it is a strong predictor of future readiness and success. We've also identified increasing learning gains for all students with specific focus on students in our lowest quartile. We know that we must provide attention and support on specific student groups, especially with the ESSA student groups, Every Student Succeeds Act. We need to make sure that every student is growing, learning, and being successful. And in the end, we want to make sure that our high school acceleration data is increasing as well. And that basically to ensure that all students not only have access and opportunity, but the opportunity to be successful in college-level coursework and/or career technical education pathways. Rest assured, the team, as Corey already mentioned, plans to refine and define additional milestones, measurables, and outcomes for all of you to see on a regular basis. The team, and I'm going to say this, and I know it's true, enthusiastically proposed 5 strategies to drive this work. Strategy number 1, expand and enhance early learning and pre-K programming opportunities for our students and families. Why? It's simple. Eliminate the gap and start early. We know that there's so much data out there that supports early learning and getting our kids ready for school. We need to work collaboratively with our parents and those community partners to go ahead and make sure that we're doing everything possible so that our future shining stars come ready to learn. In the essence, basically, this strategy is about committing to invest in the expansion of early learning, using careful analysis of related data in the design and implementation that will ensure our children enter school ready to learn. What will success look like? In strategy 1, all students enter school aware, prepared, and ready for school. Strategy 2, maximizing learning for all students through a multi-tiered system of supports. Why? All means all. We need to personalize the journey and supports along the way for every student. MTSS is a systematic approach that addresses conditions for creating successful and sustainable system of change while also supporting students and staff. We need to, in the essence of strategy 2, we need to ensure fidelity of implementation of high quality tier 1 instruction across the board at every school and at every level for every child. And we need to respond to the individual student needs, making intentional, data-based decisions on what they need to help them thrive and succeed. What will success look like in strategy 2? Rigorous, relevant, responsive, and results-driven instruction. Strategy 3, implement a collaborative planning framework that ensures high levels of student learning using the Professional Learning Community, or PLC model. Why? It's simple. We work smarter together. The power of collective efficacy is John Hattie's highest effect size of 1.57. We need to focus on learning, collaboration, and results. That's what success is all about. PLCs allow teachers an easy way to share best practices, brainstorm innovative ways to improve learning, and drive positive student achievement. What does success look like in Strategy 3? Teacher teams and school leaders working interdependently to ensure the success of every student. Strategy 4, provide arts and experiential learning opportunities for students that honor multiple modalities and engage all students. Why? Because engagement and relevance is key. We know that ultimately the essence of this strategy is that the arts, so popular here, and we're so blessed to have such support in our community. Arts not only help our students stay in school, succeed in school, and ultimately thrive beyond school. What will success look like in Strategy 4? Every student is involved in high-quality arts and experiential learning opportunities every year. 5, strategy number 5, equip all students for life readiness through access to accelerated, specialized, college and career-focused instructional opportunities. Why this strategy? Because we need to prepare all students for the and their future. This strategy, the essence is basically this strategy's activities and metrics will help our district and school staff offer support that considers a more holistic picture of individual learning, development, and potential for each student. Wherever their journey takes them following high school graduation, our students must have they must better understand their strengths, be able to overcome obstacles, and set realistic goals for their future. What does success look like for Strategy 5? Every student graduates college, career, and/or life ready, and every student has a personalized success plan ready to enter the real world. In the end, I would just like to summarize. This is really, really exciting work. I don't know that folks usually say that about a strategic plan, but I've said it from the get-go. This is an opportunity to pull things together and really focus and align our efforts on what matters most and what works. The activities proposed by our strategy leads are aligned with these strategies, they're measurable, and they're courageous. Throughout the strategic planning process, they will guide and connect our work so that we can continue this work together, not just as an instructional division, but with all departments throughout this district. I'm so proud of the strategy leads, everybody that worked behind the scenes, our school leaders, and our teachers and support staff, because we together engage in the most purposeful, worthwhile, and meaningful work. And by working together as one, we can ensure the success of all. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you. Well, I'm glad you guys found something to do these last few weeks. No, truly, though, I am. I know you've been pulled in a lot of directions with the COVID and the teachers out and students out, and I really, really appreciate that you still found time to focus on this. I know this is our plan, but I see Dr. Asplin's hands kind of on this too, because I know from comparing our district to others, especially that one district that seems to rise above, St. John's focuses a lot on pre-K, and from my experience in the legislature and all of that, and the State Coordinating Council for Early Childhood Services back in 1990, I know that early childhood services really can make a difference. Quality education, and the state used to provide that, and then we sort of got away from that from our schools. And I'd like to be able to use those classrooms that we have in some of our elementary schools, especially in the Title I areas, to be able to do that. So I'm glad to do that. And I also see the professional learning communities. I think that was something that I saw that your district, we really didn't have a discussion about this, but somewhere I was reading that you really worked with those learning communities. And I know we've talked about it in our district, but I don't think we've really used them at all of our schools. So I would like to see that our teachers really come together and work and plan together. Because I think, as we said, if we're working together, for the success of all, that is going to be a real big leap forward. And the one question I have is access to accelerated. I know Pineview is for gifted students, because I know that some students that are gifted get very bored in classes. But we're also separating in a lot of the schools gifted students. And I'm like, where are we? I mean, because is it better to separate them, or is it better to keep them in a class so that they raise up the other children in the class? And I don't know where we're going on that, if we're going to look for more gifted classrooms in the schools, or we want to have more integrated classrooms in the school.
Well, that's an excellent question. Thank you very much. And I think, the thing that comes to my mind, and Tammy, you could certainly elaborate as well, is I think looking at a multi-tiered system of support is basically making sure that we are differentiating our instruction to meet and personalizing the instruction to meet the needs of all students, whether it's in an inclusive setting and or in an advanced work environment. Bottom line is our teachers are certainly capable. We need to recognize the abilities of our students, and we need to raise the bar for all kids so that, again, they're getting, going back to that tier 1 instruction and or personalized intervention and support, and that could include acceleration. We need to make sure that we're providing that, and that's part of this strategy for sure.
Thank you. Karen?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question's for Mr. Renoff, and before I start, I'm with you. I couldn't be more excited about this work. Will you and your team have models for professional learning communities, for staff, or anyone that can see what a high-quality PLC looks like and what they do? In addition to those models, will you have models available for lessons, in models that teachers can see teachers employing instruction and learning that meets the strategies that you've put together? Will those kinds of models be available for our teachers and school community?
I think the easy answer is yes, absolutely. I'm going to turn it over to Mary Ellen and Carol just to talk a little bit about PLC and the design team and where we look to head with that. But for sure, making sure that we are out observing, watching, listening, and capturing those best practices. I couldn't agree with you more. A picture, a video, watching, seeing it in action firsthand, and there's nothing better than that. So again, that collaborative piece is key.
Awesome.
Thank you. Bridget?
Did you want to?
Well, she was.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm
sorry.
I'm sorry, Mary Ellen. I'm sorry.
Mr. Renoff covered it, but yes, Ms. Brown and I have already been working on a very detailed 3-year plan for rollout and implementation, and we have formed a district PLC, Professional Learning Committee, community district design team, and we are working on that with district level people involved and also some principals involved, and we are in the process right now of exploration of different models, different implementation models, and in fact, next week we're going on our first conference to explore one model, and then in November we're going to look at another, and part of our plan is absolutely creating something that is sustainable and replicable for others to implement at the school level.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bridget?
Thank you. Well, again, I agree, and I think something was said at the beginning that it's refreshing to be talking about instruction and education, since I think that is why we are all here. But at the same time, needing this framework because we do know things get thrown at us, and this will keep us focused. So I am incredibly excited, and I would argue, no offense to any of the other goals, but this to me is one of the most important goals. So if we needed 45 minutes on it of the 2 hours, I would be absolutely fine with that. But with that said, and this may be part of what Mrs. Rose mentioned, and I second her request just to see the meat into it, just for more insight. But when I look at some of the priority strategies and the words, and again, I think this may be because it's the public-facing document, but words like expand, maximize, implement, all very important, but then it comes down to, and you covered a little bit of it, like what does success look like there? And so So can you talk to, I have two questions, so this is one, and then answer, and then second one. So can any of you speak to a little bit more about, what does the progress monitoring look like for those specific strategies? I'll use expand and enhance early learning pre-kindergarten. What is that going to look like, so throughout the year we're hitting the mark where we want to go? Anyone?
Fabulous.
And all of them, but anyone who wants to.
Go ahead, Tracy.
Okay, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you. And so if we're going to just take a look at strategy 1, expanding early learning and pre-kindergarten programming, inside the PIM that was mentioned earlier, the document that we affectionately call the PIM, we've identified several different metrics by which to measure our progress throughout time. One of those metrics is taken from our state indicators, which include LRE for our students with disabilities. So looking at opportunities for our students with disabilities to be included in inclusive pre-K programming might be a metric that we might settle on. The more important thing is, I think, the conversation about how we're going to do this and how we're going to invite all of our stakeholders to be a part of this evolutionary progress, to have conversations about what's best for our students, taking into consideration, setting, programming, those kinds of things, and then inviting a lot of different people to the table. So there are different metrics that are identified for each of the different strategies. I don't know if that covers
So as
everything.
Go Leads, you guys would be, your kind of ownership of that is for each of these, and you already have. And so I apologize. The PIM may have allowed me to answer some of the questions I had prior to, but so you're saying that each person represented here already has those progress monitoring metrics in place for the year. So it's not just the 5-year, we're talking inside of that year.
Go ahead, Dr. Asplund.
If I can mention one thing as well, two other things. I know we're also looking at expanding as much as possible. I think we have around 36 classrooms across the district, pre-K classrooms across the district. I think 30 of those are students with disability classrooms, and then we have VPK for the other 6. And what we'd like to see is to expand that, number one, but also I'd like to see us blend those classes somewhat so that they look a lot like what students are going to see in their kindergarten class, so that they're kindergarten ready. Right now, I would say there's more of a self-contained structure, students with disabilities, self-contained structure across 30 of our classes. But we want to invite more of our VPK students into that mix and actually blend those classrooms as we expand so those students are ready for kindergarten.
Thank you. And again, it was more of the macro of how are you measuring it, because this year or last year, great example of things get thrown at you that you don't expect. So, how do we, because the purpose of this is to help us unify and stay on track. So the final question, and again, this may be in the PIM, but some of the, particularly I want to focus on reading. I think that's one of our key areas we all can agree need to be heavily focused on for a multitude of reasons. But when we think about the role of the board, is a lot of it's budgetary and supporting those missions and strategies. But when I think of programs that we are utilizing and we're not seeing the results that we want, can you speak to how that's embedded into this? I will use iReady, reading recovery. I think it's so important because when you look at the aggregated data, in my personal opinion, we're not where we need to be. And so if we have certain programs, and again, you have to peel back that onion. So but with that said, what is being done about that as far as evaluating the efficacy of specific programs?
That's a fabulous question. Thank you so much. So the first thing I would say is it starts with, you're right, we have to step back and take a look at, again, I mentioned what works. We know what works. And I'm just going to be honest with you, PLCs and looking at data and student work and driving and collaboratively planning together, working smarter, works. iReady is a component of that. I mean, that data, at teachers' fingertips and understanding it. I mean, our teachers, I know I've had conversations with some of you that our teachers have access to so much data. What does that data mean? We're data rich, but we just need to make sure that everybody thoroughly understands what data is at their fingertips and how best to utilize it to go ahead and work smarter so that, again, we're customizing and personalizing the supports for students. The other piece is looking at programs. I'll use reading recovery and literacy lessons. I mean, those are proven programs. They hands down have data that we've never seen before. However, we haven't had a curricular resource in the last 8 years that has been as good as what we just adopted in this district. And I'm just going to tell you right now, the bells and whistles, if you will, kudos to the board and this district, because we really went all in. And looking at our benchmark resources, I'm just speaking for elementary, K through 5, it is a consistent set of resources. There's progress monitoring built in. For the first time in my career, we are progress monitoring with the same resource weekly across every classroom in this district. And again, teachers have access to that data to utilize in their planning and their CPTs, but so do schools and so do the districts, so that we can evaluate what's going well, what isn't. Oh, hey, it worked in your classroom. Could you maybe share with me so that I could go ahead and consider that for use in my classroom? Again, I just think we need to take a step back. That is part of this planning process, is really just looking at evaluating what is working. Maybe not necessarily stopping everything, but really prioritizing what we know produces results.
Thank you.
Karen?
Yes. Will the PIM identify beyond district staff that are responsible and accountable? Will it identify school-based staff, for example, assistant principals or guidance counselors or behavior specialists, liaisons, et cetera, that are the responsible party in that school for progress monitoring and individual students, groups of students, and how it connects to the tiers of support? How do we know who will be doing that in what intervals with what types of reports? Is that in place, or will it be?
So, and I'm going to let Tammy go ahead and just elaborate on that, but I can tell you right now, I'm not sure that the PIM goes to that level of detail, but I can tell you right now, our strategy leads and our administrators want to go to that level, because we want to, again, make sure that everybody's clear on their roles and responsibilities, and so that there is accountability. And it's not a gotcha, it's not any of that, it's just making sure that everybody has a clear understanding of, okay, this is my role, and again, how important it is to make sure that there's checks and balances for all of us, so that when we're having those rich conversations about teaching and learning, everybody can make sure, and there isn't something with so much on the plate for all of our teachers and our support staff. We just want to make sure clear is kind. And
Well,
so
it's a phenomenal plan. I haven't seen anything like this in 3 decades. I commend you beyond. I just don't want to see it watered down or lost in any of its essence or intent once it gets to the school level, because there's so much going on a day-to-day basis. And if there isn't an accountable employee category for each one of these pieces in reporting intervals connected to the tiers of support, I caution us as to the ultimate goals.
yeah, I can assure you, again, at this level, our strategy leads and our school leaders want to make sure that that's in place. I just don't know that the PIM is equipped to do that.
And not necessarily
Yeah,
the PIN, but
I get
in a visible,
Yes.
categorical staff
Correct.
responsibility. Thank you very
bet.
much.
Mr. Edwards?
I think the 5 strategies, at least from my observation, not being an educator, is that you've identified gaps, or what I would refer to as opportunities. And so I commend you on that. Those were just my observations. I'm looking forward to seeing that next layer that we're all talking about, which is the PIM, to see how you're planning on implementing it. And I like the fact that you say things like, in strategy 1, aware and prepared. I still don't know how to measure that, so that's why I am looking forward to that PIM. One last piece that I would just throw out there as an overall is that, again, just my personal observation is that I've just noticed that we all sort of take a deep dive in the task orientation and accomplishing those particular tasks, but I'd still challenge you to remember your customer service skills and to make sure that there's a soft touch, particularly to the families.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And you're talking about progress monitoring and everything. I understand that the governor is looking at getting rid of the FSA and the end of course exams, but replacing them with monitoring throughout the year. I think you might want to reach out to Senator Joe Gruters as chair of the Senate Education Committee and share with him what kind of progress monitoring we already do to make sure that we're not going to be overlapping what the state and what we do.
Yeah,
I think that would be helpful to all of us.
That's a fabulous idea.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
And that's it for questions on Goal 1.
Thank you for the opportunity.
All right, thank you very much to our curriculum team. Really appreciate it. Next is our student services team, and I believe Deb Jackalo and her team will make their way up. All right, thank you, Deb. Go ahead. No.
How about now?
Yes.
Okay, good morning, guys. Thank you so much for letting us be here. I feel the exact same way that Mr. Renoff feels. I feel very honored to have this opportunity to sit in front of you all today and to share some of the ideas that are surrounded to Goal 2 and to introduce you to a fabulous team of professionals that work directly with me on this goal. Our team includes Stephanie Velakis, Mandy Coker, Tara Allen, Brittany Shirley, Susie DeBose, Dawn Clayton, and Erin Singerman. Additionally, we had representation from Christy Jarvis, the principal at Ashton Elementary, and Erin Del Castillo, the principal at Riverview High School, as well as Dr. Harriet Moore. So this team came with us having tremendous leadership skills, collaborative expertise, and just a passion for doing this work. Goal 2 is all about how we can foster a healthy, supportive learning environment for all of our students. We know that if we can successfully create this environment, research has shown us that our students are more likely to make academic advancements, to improve attendance rates, to graduate with a plan in place, and will be less likely to engage in disruptive behaviors. Throughout this goal and embedded in each strategy, you're going to hear words like research-based, relationships, belonging, dignity, and inclusion. Research suggests that there's a very strong relationship between school climate and academic achievement. You heard a lot during Goal 1 about the work that will be dedicated to focus on making academic advancements. Our goal in Goal 2 is to help create that environment that will foster success for every student every day in Sarasota County schools. Focus groups throughout the district overwhelmingly asked that we have an intentional expectation to prioritize emotional literacy and mental well-being for every student at every grade level. At this time, I'm proud to introduce our strategies. Our first strategy is focused on enhancing social emotional learning and supports provided to students to promote belonging, dignity, and inclusion. Why are we going to be focused on this strategy? Well, according to the Association for Children's Mental Health, addressing mental health needs in our schools is critically important because 1 in 5 children have a diagnosable emotional, behavioral, or mental health disorder, while 1 in 10 people have a mental health challenge that is severe enough to impair how they function at home, at school, and in the community. This strategy is all about ways to improve relationships and develop social skills for every one of our students. We are going to focus on implementing character education. We'd like to implement universal screening in the areas of trauma, self-awareness, and emotional regulation. We'd also like to ensure that professional learning takes place for every staff member on how to be aware of the mental health needs of students and what to do when an identified concern arises. We want to work diligently to preserve the roles of our counselors and our student services team members to ensure that their expertise is dedicated to supporting our students every single day. What we hope this looks like at the end is that every student comes to school every day ready to learn in a safe, supported learning environment. Our second strategy, which Dawn Clayton leads, is ensuring that every child has a high-quality relationship with an adult that will promote belonging, dignity, and inclusion. Mr. Renoff referenced the work of Dr. John Sapphire, and we are going to reference some of the work of Dr. John Sapphire within this strategy as well. But for right now, I want to focus on what Dr. John Hattie has found. In a research study conducted, he found that when teachers adopt the core belief that students can succeed, the outcome is greater student achievement. So during this strategy, we're going to focus on things like building capacity of our behavior specialists and our school counselors. We're going to work diligently to ensure that our school improvement plans include strategies for building relationships, like really focusing on mentoring programs throughout. We're also going to try to build district-wide capacity for staff in order to help build strong relationships with every student. In summary, this strategy will foster a sense of high expectations for building relationships and engaging students to promote belonging and dignity for all stakeholders throughout the district. Okay, our third strategy, which was led by Brittany Shirley and Tara Allen, focuses on promoting positive behavior throughout proactive education and restorative practices to promote belonging, dignity, and inclusion. Our students need a school environment that includes proactive, positive behavioral supports and highly trained staff who develop positive relationships, respect, and inclusion through use of evidence-based strategies. We're going to continue with our work surrounded by PBIS throughout the district. We want to provide ongoing training for every school on the implementation of a multi-tiered system of supports through PBIS at all 3 tiers. We're going to continue our collaborative partnership with USF and the PBIS project. We're going to work diligently to try to build a restorative climate in every school. Those restorative climates will foster restorative strategies and encourage relationships, respect, responsibility, repair, and reintegration. We hope to increase the number of students who receive a check-in, check-out with fidelity. So we're having somebody lay eyes on the students before problems escalate or concerns rise to a level where higher intensity supports are necessary. We know that our goal is to have 100% of our schools recognized by the state as model school sites, and we will continue to work to meet that initiative. Strategy 4 is led by Stephanie Valakis and Aaron Singerman and Susie DeBose. This strategy is really focused around building staff capacity to identify and address mental health needs of our students. According to the CDC, fostering the physical and mental health of school employees also helps to support students' health and academic success. Every school employee, no matter the role they play, contributes to a school's mission. School staff can give their best when they feel their best. Supporting staff emotional well-being also increases a sense of value and belonging and reduces staff turnover and staff stress. Our team is going to work very collaboratively with school-based leaders to help us establish employee resource groups at every single one of our school sites, so all staff have a place where they can receive support in a safe environment. We're going to continue to promote evidence-based programs with our leaders so that their emotional and social wellness can be a priority. Our staff will participate in Purposeful People, which is part of our character education. What we do with our students is also important that we do with our adults. We've talked a lot about that reciprocal relationship. When staff are doing well, our students are doing well, and vice versa. We want to continue to increase the number of staff that are trained in youth mental health first aid and to create an awareness of mental health in this district. Staff mental health will continue to be a priority as we move forward with Strategy 4. Our last strategy is led by Chief Enos. I don't see him in here, so I apologize that he's not with us this morning. But his strategy is focused on creating an environment which physical safety is a priority. We know that it has been proven that students will excel when we create a safe learning environment, as staff will be able to provide higher level of service in safe environments throughout our campus. Things that we want to really focus on with Strategy 5 is the role of our SROs. We want SROs to be able to provide support to our parents and to provide education not only to our students, but to our parents and our community as well. We want to be on the cutting edge with technology and be able to implement the latest tools to help keep our staff and students safe while on campus. SROs will continue to build trusting relationships with all stakeholders, prioritizing physical safety on our campus. What this looks like, our SROs will play a critical role of being partners in learning and highly visible throughout the campus as a proactive resource to support our students and our families. Our goal is to prioritize the needs of all of our families and all of our students so that learning can be maximized. I want to go back to how we're going to know how we're making progress. We, like Goal 1, have identified 3 of our North Star metrics. So things that we're going to be monitoring throughout the year and collecting data on, hopefully making positive impacts, include these 3 metrics. Number 1, we want to reduce the % of disciplinary incidents that result in exclusionary consequences from school. Why is this really important? Because we all know when students aren't in school, they're not learning. If we can increase time in classrooms, we hope to also improve academic achievement. We want to increase the number of questions on the annual climate survey. We want to make sure that our students, when surveyed, feel like they belong, and they indicate this by a positive score. We know that when students feel like they belong, that learning is optimized, attendance improves, and behavioral incidents decrease. We also want to focus on our discipline rate gap between our Black and our white students. We want to ensure that our practices are equitable for all students and that we are identifying evidence-based strategies to help ensure that every student is in school every day learning. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. I actually had Craig check on this, on metric 1, where you said you're going to reduce the exclusionary consequences or out of school from 57% last year to 7% by 25-26. I said, is that a typo?
That's a very good question. That's a very ambitious goal, but our team feels very confident with the support of our school leaders and the strategies that we plan to implement that we can actually decrease our discipline exclusions by 10% each year. Very ambitious, but it's something that we're striving diligently to meet.
Will that require changing any of the policies or, like if there's, if somebody beats somebody up right now, if, it's an automatic 10-day suspension or something like that, are we looking at doing something else now, or?
I'm going to let Dawn jump on that question quickly. She is our expert in this area, and then I can piggyback on with some additional data.
It's not on.
Good morning. Is that better? Well, I too, like Chris Renoff and Deb Jackalone, I share excitement with the strategic plan and the opportunity that we have to be able to make gains. In the area of discipline, one thing I will say is that over the last few years, actually more than that even, our district has made great gains when it comes to creating consistency across the district and how we implement disciplinary practices. As you can see from the data that was discussed today, we still have a way to go. We still have to make sure that we are being equitable in all of our practices. Yes, as you referenced, Mrs. Brown, there are zero tolerance, and there are recommendations for things like a fight resulting in 10 days of out-of-school suspension. I'm so thrilled to report that we still, and we will continue to explore other options, but we still, even at the present time, have other measures in place that are restorative in nature, where we can have students come back to school in a restorative environment and a supportive environment, where we have individuals in the school setting who are helping to teach children appropriate ways of navigating through disciplinary or potential disciplinary events. So most of the time, our students who do commit these events aren't excluded for 10 days. So what we need to do with this particular plan is to refine those strategies, seek other strategies, as well as to figure out ways of creating that consistency across all of our student groups in the district.
Thank you. Karen?
Thank you, Madam Chair. How do you know when you are reducing the discipline data that you are also improving the behaviors? What is going to show us that? There is a perception that, yes, over the last few years, our discipline data has been significantly reduced. I'm not confident that the behaviors have improved in line with the reduction in discipline. How are we going to measure that? And most importantly, in that measurement, will you include input from classroom teachers in the form of surveys or such that is anonymous, that they can have input on is behavior connected? And then I have 2 more questions after that, please.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to let Brittany Shirley take this one for us. Thank you, Brittany.
Good morning. I'm very excited to be here. I share the same excitement that everyone else has. This is such an important question. As we move forward through PBIS systems, we have been learning so much about how our students interact with their teachers on campus. And without that understanding of improved behavior, there's no, working closely with USF, what we've learned is reducing discipline referrals doesn't change what happens in the classroom. Having a teacher not write a referral doesn't change what's happening in the classroom. And so the ultimate goal behind restorative practices and behind looking at a reduction in disciplinary outcomes of exclusionary discipline would be to ensure that our students are having positive behavior in the classrooms. And we are working to develop fidelity tools, and there are already fidelity tools in place that USF has developed and that are nationally vetted and used as tiered fidelity indicators that allow our teachers to participate in training and then implementation, that modeling and coaching cycle. Well, they'll be able to not only have people observe them and see if the behaviors are being addressed in the classroom, if they're changing within the classroom, but allow teachers the opportunity to communicate back with us and with their leaders on their campuses that behavior is changing and improving on campus. There's no reason to have a discipline that doesn't improve the students' outcomes. The goal is that they're learning in the classroom.
And we have a measure from teachers where they're able to be surveyed to, will we have an actual data measure from classroom teachers who are first and foremost in being with students all day long, where they can say that behaviors are improving? I understand the training and I respect it. I think it's glorious, but will we have a measure, like we have a measure of data reducing? Will we have a measure from teachers that as the discipline is reducing, that positive behaviors are increasing?
There's definitely questions on the school climate survey, and to further that, I think that is a great suggestion for inclusion as we move forward with USF to expand our restorative implementation fidelity checklist that we're using, to add a portion of that to ensure that teachers have that feedback and how that's happening.
More often than the climate survey.
Regularly, so that we can see what's working and attack those problems where they sit at that time.
Thank
so that's
you
a
very
great
much.
suggestion for us to include in that fidelity tool.
Thank you. And
Thank
the
you.
second is...
Oh, wait, could you bring back in for another one so that everyone has their chance for the questions? So just bring yourself back in again for your next question.
Sure.
Jane?
Well, you know, there's not such great behavior at our school board meetings, and I'm sure this doesn't bode well for our students. But some of the emails that I've received this week and people looking at this plan is that, you know, they're concerned that SEL and restorative strategies are all part of CRT in some way. So I want to make sure that we are doing this important work, because I know how it benefits our students, but it has nothing to do with CRT or race relations or anything else. And I think we need to make sure that we're very clear any documents that we put out there, because I'm seeing a lot of buzz about that.
Thank you for bringing that up, because we do not want to conflate
No.
the two terms of.
No, and it's just another, miscommunication, misunderstanding, and maybe even a lie. But basically, when we look at discipline and the new tools to rein in discipline, and, I go back to several years ago when a group of us went up and met with church leaders, and we looked at restorative strategies, and I went to Jacksonville and looked at things that they were doing with their students in the middle and high school. I mean, I was pretty convinced before that, but I know that are we doing those kinds of things in our high schools now?
That is one of our goals. I think you're referring to establishing restorative climates. I remember early on in my career, you shared some articles, and Jacksonville was one of the high schools that were doing excellent practices around restorative strategies. That is something that our district has prioritized for the last several years. We've made it voluntary over the last few years. Students and staff were able to participate in restorative strategies training at the Tier 1 level. We have 5 pilot schools that have had all of their staff members go through restorative strategies trainings at Tier 1, and working collaboratively with Dawn's department, we are implementing the use of restorative meetings and restorative consequences in order to have alternatives to exclusionary discipline practices. So it will continue to be a high priority within the strategic plan.
And I would like to see how Triad is included in this plan. Triad is a very important tool for us, and I'd like to sit down with you separately, Deb, and go through some of these things.
Yes, thank you.
Bridget?
Thank you. Well, I'm almost going to summarize. So I agree, and it's interesting. I said that academics was so important. It is, but I appreciate all of these really play into the ability for that to be successful, and this is a huge area. So I agree from a culture standpoint. I mean, that is foundational to make all the difference in the world as far as people liking their job or the academic success and retaining quality human capital. And I think Mrs. Rose touched on this. I think that I agree with the philosophy. A child can't learn if they're suspended or out of school. I mean, that's just not. It's counterproductive, ironically. However, we do also have, if we think about character education, there are benefits, and then you have to have consequences for poor behavior, and that is important to develop that over time. And so when I saw the 57-7, I know historically there have been initiatives, and it drove that goal. That met number was so critical that as a result, and this is not Sarasota County, I think we saw this nationally, as a result it changed behaviors of staff or what have you in decision-making processes. And this has happened historically, and that is where I want to be very cautious, because that's not the intent, but there is a reality to, that over time that starts to shift, and you actually get far away from what your ultimate core goal was. And so seeing the 57-7, I'd celebrate that all day long, but to Mrs. Rose's point of, does that match up with the behavioral environment that we're seeing? And one thing that that Dr. Clayton said was the consistency, which I think is a huge part, and I appreciate the work you've done around there. And it's hard because each scenario is different, and it has to be addressed that way. But I think that that's imperative from the culture standpoint, so that it does feel like it's fair and balanced. And those are just my thoughts. The one thing I do want to note on, because I also did get those emails on, and I will say, I believe social and emotional well-being is paramount whether you're in K-12 and you're in higher education or you're working. And I think there's a lot of things that play a role to that. I do believe that over time, and this has there's no responsible parties here, but there have been things that have been illustrated that it seems that there's a level of exploitation within certain material. And so I know Dr. Asplin's made it very clear. I know that is not the intent. That's not going to happen. And I believe this plan is all about the accountability and getting to where we need to go. And so for anyone listening, and to be fair to you, I wanted to address that, because that is not the intent. Those are not, I don't know why everything gets blended into CRT, but because that was referenced. But there have been things that have illustrated that weren't appropriate. That is not our game plan. And we have a plan in place. Our staff all knows that. This is intentional work. You want to address that publicly? So, because we're not getting into the nitty gritty, but I think to be fair to any of the members of the community, so we can squash what any misunderstanding.
Yes,
there.
that's true. And when we look at social emotional learning, and you heard Deb really talk about it very, very well, looking at a student's environment and their background and where they're coming from and understanding their home life and things about them really help us to be able to educate them. And then they engage when we build those relationships. And so part of what we are trying to do as well is look at a few different programs, one being about relationships between students and teachers. We hope to build that, which will really help us in the classroom, and then also will help the students build relationships with each other. And that's part of what SEL is. How do you react to your fellow student when you're having a debate in class? How are you questioning and answering in class and working together? And so all of that is SEL, social emotional learning. And so it's not about CRT. CRT is not part of anything in our school system. And as we see it, we take care of it, as you said.
Thank you.
And then you also mentioned, with the law and character ed. I know we've had character ed here before, other districts have as well, and I know now it's in the law, which is fantastic. But we will be also looking at, we have a couple of different companies that we're looking at, different programs that we're looking at to help us drive the character ed curriculum as we move forward as well. So.
Thank you. And then just one final thing, it was on the universal screening. Because you quoted Dr. Hattie, I think it was, and about the focus of when you have the mindset that every child can succeed, it really alters the environment and the culture. And so when we're doing, can you speak, because I wasn't familiar that we're going to be doing universal screenings. Can you speak to that a little bit more?
Yes, that's something we're looking at right now through a partnership with USF. Universal screening is designed to help us identify students who may have concerns that we may miss because for one reason or another it's not brought to our attention. We often find students who are disruptive or causing behaviors or are outspoken or who have families that really advocate for them. They come to the forefront and they get the services that they need. Sometimes students internalize behaviors and we don't know that about those internal struggles. So universal screening helps identify students that may be in need of additional support, and it's done universally. So that means we will start very slowly. We're hoping to start at a specific grade level, at a specific school, and to see what type of data that we get from those students and what supports we can put in place to better serve them and to meet their needs. Universal screening, like all things that we do related to student well-being, involves parents as partners, and these things don't happen without parental consent, and we take it a step further, make it informed parental consent so parents know what we're looking for and what our desired outcome is going to be. So if your child participates in this, what happens next? It's a very careful, thoughtful, and delicate process that we plan to implement, and 100% of the time we cannot do it without our parents as partners.
Karen?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mrs. Jackalone or Dr. Asplin, have you considered, in lieu of contracting out, in having, as a principal, had Chief Enos, SRO programs, they were trained to offer programs for students at risk and with activities, challenging activities that were extraordinarily successful, that allowed mentoring and building relationships with law enforcement throughout the school year. In lieu of contracting out, or in addition to, have we considered any such programs? And not saying that our current SRO staff can handle more, but I think it's a consideration to build the SRO organization that we have within our system versus contracting out what might be more unknown, have more unknown variables in their programming. Is that a consideration, or has it been?
I can tell you what I know from speaking with Chief Enos, that our SROs are trained to provide classroom lessons to student groups on various topics to help them feel more successful and safe at school, with the ultimate goal of trying to reduce bullying in our schools. So yes, he's been working with those staff members to be trained, and we hope to have them all in our classrooms working with students. I think I wanted to mention to you all that we're trying to change that role of the SRO and let them be a positive partner on campus in our classrooms and for our parents.
I'm specifically addressing at-risk programming trained SROs that had after-school or before-school programs that had challenge physical activities, hiking, mentoring for at-risk students, because in addition to that programming, there was opportunities to have a mentor, a person that you knew was your advocate at that school throughout the year. That was an extraordinarily successful program that I just want to bring to the surface in lieu of contracting out with individuals that we don't necessarily aren't there monitoring their programs beginning, middle, and end. I think having an in-house program, particularly while we still have access to Chief Enos, is some food for thought that I experienced as one of the most successful at-risk programs. So there's that piece. And in addition to that, I just want to say, as I did with the instructional piece, having been at schools for 28 years, being part of student study teams, tiers of support, staff at schools that are accountable for progress monitoring, not only instructional academic success, but the tiers attached to that. Are you looking again at individual assigned staff and even more importantly, what is their caseload and how successful are they in those schools of identifying and reporting on groups of students and the evolution of the tiers of support and the success? Who's monitoring that and what intervals? I will say that the two goals that have been brought forth are beyond glorious. I just want to overemphasize that when you get into a school with the things that are going on a daily basis, and even more so now in today's challenges with safety and COVID, it loses all the work and the essence that you folks have been, your skills and your brilliance. I just want to emphasize that piece is something that I think will be the make or break of accomplishing the data goals in that PIM.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's one of the pluses of having our own police department as our SROs, that we can work with them and have them help us on a social level with the schools too. Tom?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate also you qualifying that parents are involved step by step. I think that was an important piece also while we're clarifying the CRT, that because it is mental health and akin to medical, that those decisions are inclusive of the parents. The one other piece that I want to just ask a question about, I know, Deb, you and I talked about this just briefly yesterday, those 1 in 5 statistics and 1 in 10 statistics. We talked briefly yesterday about how social media comes into play and how that affects people's personal well-being and their thoughts regarding anxiety and depression and those types of things. As we transition from a reactive environment regarding mental health, are we looking at courses on how to manage social media and how to integrate that proactively into your life and using those tools correctly so that it prevents any kind of mental health issues that could come up? Are we taking a look at that?
Yes, and I appreciate you bringing that forward. After we spoke yesterday, I went and did some research, and I was interested to learn that, surprisingly, there's not a whole lot of research because social media is so new, and we know that there's so many opportunities to capitalize on the use of social media to help promote and proactively increase mental health awareness. I'm going to let Mandy talk about, she's our mental health expert on our team, and I'm going to let her talk about just some of the things that we're already doing proactively around social media through our mental health education modules and through some other initiatives that we have in place coming up. Thank you, Mandy.
Good morning. Can you hear me? Okay. Part of the proactive steps that we're taking goes along with our mental health mandate for the district. So students right now in grades 6 through 12 are already receiving 5 hours of mental health education. And part of that focal point is that social media awareness. also focusing on recognizing signs and symptoms of things that social media can play. I wanted to just touch a little bit on when we talked about the social emotional learning or emotional literacy that this goal entails. Part of the curriculum that we've been looking at, and specifically just mention to you what pieces it focuses on, because it kind of ties into what you were saying. So for the emotional literacy portion, it's really focusing on that self-awareness, that self-management, that social awareness. So understanding when we're looking in that social media portion, the difference between what's on the phone and what's happening in real life, looking at reasonable decision-making and increasing relationship skills with real-life people as opposed to over social media. It also is going to focus on character development. So when we're looking at patience, kindness, honesty, respect, selflessness, forgiveness, and humility. So I just wanted to talk, I know we talked a little bit about kind of differentiating it from CRT, and that is really the focal point of this emotional literacy and the curriculum. One thing in my role that I receive a lot of from teachers, from administrators, or from school counselors is a request for a curriculum when it comes to emotional literacy. Teachers and counselors, psychologists would like to have something that they can reference and use that is research-based, that is evidence-based, so they are comfortable having conversations and teaching these skills to ensure that they are following the standards that are set forth for them.
I would just thank you for that, by the way. I think that's, especially in those grade levels, that's a real good introduction, and that sounded great. I would add, because it is so new, but it's the data and the things that I'm reading are showing that it has a huge, social media has a huge impact on the mental health, particularly of our young people. And so I would put that on your awareness radar in a big way. And secondly, I hear it from parents all the time. If there were some resource that we could provide for them as to coincide with the training that's happening in schools that get reinforced at home, so it's happening side by side. So I just throw that out there. Thank you so much. That I am so excited about this particular goal. As you know, I've been talking about this since I got here. So well done.
Bridget?
Thank you. I would be remiss if I didn't bring this up because I think the social media piece is so huge, so terrifying, quite frankly, as a mom with 3 young kids. And I don't know what I don't know yet. And I have had many conversations with Chief Enos. And I know I mentioned this last time. He does have a program that will help families, parents know because it changes so quickly. And to be aware so that, because if we're thinking about that partnership, and it does bleed into the school of what transpires for what they can look at. So I would love to see us execute that. I believe it already I know it already exists. And so I know he's got limited bandwidth, but I know that there would be a high demand of parents of multiple age groups that would just like to get some insight as to what the trend is, what they're seeing, what to look out for, how to secure things, what have you. Finally, I will bring up one more time, but we don't need to go into this, but the impediment that social media and phones are and the distraction, because when you broke down the goals of being present and focused and being able to communicate with someone else verbally, not and seeing eye contact, what have you. I know a couple years ago we talked about it, was having a ban on cell phones on campus to try to mitigate any of those, and not a conversation for today, but I will put that back out there, because if we're gonna focus on mental health and we know that there are areas that are driving and deteriorating it, and we can mitigate it and be proactive. Again, that's just my one more pitch for that, so we can consider that in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. That's the last of the questions on that.
I have a question.
I didn't see your,
I pressed it.
not lit over here. Okay, go on. We've got 40 minutes left and 3 more goals, but go ahead.
I just want to share with Mrs. Jackalone that social media, starting in 2007, drove what occurred in the middle schools that I led. It's not necessarily new, and it's not social media happening in the school. It's after hours, and that. And again, I want to reiterate that Chief Enos is considered a national expert in providing resources in schools with parent permission when it surfaces, which in my experience surfaces on almost a daily basis, is involved in almost every discipline issue and how it starts. And he also has workshops for parents after school. So again, embedding it in the resources that already exist in our organization, while we have a national expert on board. I just say that because I know he's due to retire sometime in the next coming years, but we have that expertise on board. And thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Rose. I will definitely follow up and get some additional information from Chief Enos. He was our keynote speaker at Speak Up for Kids, and our staff has always enjoyed the benefit of learning from him, so we'll continue to tap into his expertise, and I'll get some additional information provided to you after the meeting.
I might need to reach out to you regarding the assistance for social media, because I don't know about anybody else, but there's been a lot of attacks on social media the last month or so. Goal 3.
All right. Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Deb, and
Thank you very
for your
much.
team. Fantastic. Our next goal is our human resources goal. And as we transition, I want to say, Karen, thank you. I didn't know that Mr. Enos, Tim Enos, was a national expert. That's
At our fingertips, in our organization. At our fingertips and in our organization, and wow, wouldn't it be nice if we were to build those at-risk and social media programs?
That's fantastic.
We've got the expert.
That's fantastic. And I also want to say, as we're transitioning in, the strategic plan and the character education piece, some of the words that you're going to hear and see constantly on signs around schools and so forth as we move forward are words like honesty, responsibility, trustworthiness, respect, belonging, citizenship. And that's going to be, character ed for our students, but also all of our adults. We're going to expect everybody in our organization to live by some of these words, and we're going to have signs around. We're going to have our education for our students, and then also for employees as well, as we work through our customer service piece as well. So with that, I will turn it over to Human Resources, Dr. Foster.
Good morning. First of all, like Mr. Renoff and Deb Jackalone, I also want to thank you for giving us the opportunity today to share Goal 3 with you. First, I want to go ahead and introduce our team. So we have Danielle Schweid, our staffing administrator, Al Hereda, who's our equity and equity relations administrator. And we have our recruiters. We have Christina Rogers-Eyre, who just came to us from Fruitville as a guidance counselor, Rashia Johnson. We have Alana Smith, who was a recruiter and is now one of our new generalists. We have Valita Clark and Kaylin Tully, who are 2 new generalists. We have Jody Dumas, Chief Operating Officer. We have Len Peterson, who's our supervisor of risk management. And we have Erin Singerman, our wellness coordinator. And also Dr. Harriet Moore is on our team. And so the timing of the strategic plan fit in perfectly with the timing of my arrival into the HR department. As I was able to work with our department, we were working on some new things, so it aligned nicely as we started to create our goal for HR with a strategic plan. We've been working together to create an organizational structure that drives human resources excellence and innovation to position our district as an employer of choice. Our goal is to transition our department from being more transactional in nature to being more of a strategic part of our organization by ensuring that we continue to prioritize our people, which are key factors to student success. This includes attracting the best candidates to work in our school system and then supporting them throughout their career so that they can not only fulfill their own personal goals, but that they can implement the district's vision of working as one for the success of all. Goal 3 is focused on recruiting, recognizing, and retaining a premier workforce. We like to think of them as the other 3 R's in education. As a team, we discussed many different strategies, and we decided to focus our efforts on 3 key areas. One is enhancing recruitment and retention strategies to attract and retain qualified and diverse individuals to the organization. Promoting an exceptional employee experience through a culture of employee engagement, belonging and dignity, and wellness that leads to overall employee well-being. and productivity and retention, and also by refining and communicating the compensation and benefits plan. So we're going to dive into the 3 goals. Strategy 1 is enhancing our recruitment efforts to attract qualified and diverse applicants, to decrease vacancies in all departments. Our HR recruitment team came on board a few years ago, and they've done a fabulous job of kind of jumping into the recruitment efforts during a difficult time, hosting and attending in-person events when possible, but also jumping into the virtual job fair world. The district is facing a competitive labor market due to competing opportunities and a shifting skill demands. Our recruitment team is focused on enhancing our recruitment efforts to create a more qualified and diverse applicant pool. A growing number of studies provide conclusive evidence that teacher quality is the primary school-related factor affecting student achievement. Students who are taught by effective and competent teachers excel quickly, while those who are assigned to the least effective teachers often lag behind and never catch up. Also, a diverse staff leads to a more inclusive environment for employees and students. According to a study from the National School Boards Association, minority students have better academic performance, improved graduation rates, and are more likely to attend college when they are instructed by teachers of color. So we're looking at 3 key metrics here with this goal: to increase the percentage of instructional positions that are filled by teachers of color to match our community demographics. We're also looking to increase the percentage of filled ESE positions and decrease the time it takes to fill those positions, and increase the percentage of filled classified positions in areas such as transportation, food and nutrition, and custodial services. Strategy 2 is to provide an exceptional employee experience and to promote retention of high-quality employees. The purpose of this goal is to set new hires up for success and promote an exceptional experience for all employees, starting with recruitment, followed by onboarding, retention, and engagement. Studies indicate that companies with an effective onboarding process are able to better retain and engage employees, and engaged employees are more likely to remain with the company, leading to reduced staff turnover. By promoting an exceptional employee experience and creating a culture of customer service, employees are more likely to view Sarasota County Schools as a premier employer. Additionally, wellness and recognition programs show employees that the company values them, and this increases their morale and keeps them with the district for a longer time. Continuity of staff remaining within the district has potential to impact academic achievement. By focusing our efforts on employee engagement, beginning with the recruitment process, our employees will begin their employment journey on the right path to a successful lifespan within our district, leading to reduced turnover and strengthening our culture. Our metrics that we're going to look at for this particular goal is to increase the percentage of employees satisfied with the application and onboarding process through feedback surveys, increase the percentage of employees satisfied through customer satisfaction surveys, and increase staff participation in wellness incentive prevention pays program. And our final goal is to refine and communicate a competitive compensation and benefits plan. This strategy is to ensure that the district provides and communicates a comprehensive, fair, and equitable compensation and benefits plan to attract and retain the most qualified employees for all positions. Maintaining a strong salary structure is important to the success of any organization. Personnel costs in school districts typically make up 80 to 85% of the total budget. It's important for the district to conduct regular reviews of salaries and benefits to ensure that the district is staying competitive with comparable and surrounding districts and other industries. When there's a shortage of employees, especially in key areas, it's important to conduct salary studies to make necessary changes to the salary schedule. Benefits also play a key role in our overall compensation package. And I know at the last workshop, Lynn and Aaron gave an overview of our benefits package, which is really good. So making sure that we communicate that to our employees. Our district has always offered an attractive benefits program. The hope is by improving the communication of that overall compensation, incentive, and benefits package, our department will be able to provide qualified applicants and current employees with the necessary knowledge and information about the value of the complete compensation package that the district provides. And our metrics that we're looking in this area is to increase the number of applicants for identified hard-to-fill positions, decrease the number of employees who identify salary and benefits as a reason for leaving the district, and to increase the percentage of employees who engage in preventative medical care visits. And so, as I shared in the beginning, our ultimate goal is to transition to more of a strategic partner so that we can drive HR excellence and innovation, and to really make us the employer of choice, and so that all of our employees are working together for the success of all.
Thank you. Jane?
I think one of the most important parts of the strategic plan is this part. For a number of years before you arrived, Allison, we were kind of blowing in the wind in terms of leadership, and I'm really happy that you're there. Has anything been done to look at the software that we're using? The applicant software, some of it for our other aspects of some of our teachers. Has anyone looked at that and analyzed the fact that it's difficult to manipulate and navigate?
Yeah, I worked closely with Joe Benswanger. He's worked closely with our department to look at the different programs that we have in place, which we have a lot of different things in place, whether it's Winocular or ESD system. And so we've set out some goals. In fact, some of that's built in as well. And like I said, we kind of narrowed down to 3 goals. But we've worked closely with the technology department to discuss how we can make our system overall, that technology can help it. Even moving as far as I know recently, we moved to having digital student files to move to have digital employee files. So those are all things that we have set out in our goals. As we were coming up with the strategic plan, we could only fit so many different things in there. But yes, so our department has worked closely with Joe Benswanger, and he's been a great partner to really map out kind of where we want to go. I think Jody wanted to add a little bit more there too.
I think you'll see that across much of our strategic plan. When we talk about operations, we're going to be talking about paperless environments across, and what systems are we using, and how can we maximize the use of those systems so we're not pigeonholed with one department doing one thing and one part doing another. So holistically, yes, we're looking at every system in the district, make sure it's the right system, and make sure it's integrated and we're using it correctly. A good example of, I think, what has been done with Winocular is integration with the recruitment tools. And so, Danielle, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about what you've done on that side of the house, but it's these types of things I think will maximize the use of that system.
Well, Winocular is a bad word to many of our substitute teachers and our applicants that are coming to us. So I hear this over and over again. It's difficult to operate. It's difficult to get in. I have to go in. I have to update. Teacher is retired, comes back as a substitute, has to update a resume and do all kinds of things in the system, doesn't know if it's uploaded. I always hear that. Don't know if my resume has been uploaded. We actually walked one over within the last year and just went into the department to do it because we couldn't, this applicant couldn't figure it out.
Jane, I would just ask, am I on, is this on?
Yeah.
Okay, super. Sorry. I have a loud voice, so I would just ask if that does happen, please send them to us, have them call me, because we certainly don't want that to be common. And we have had the great fortune, as you all know, to hire our generalists who are here to help with specific concerns such as that. But we're also looking at ways to improve the very thing you're speaking of, which is to perhaps decrease some of the parts that we previously required, because that mindset that, well, that's how we've always done it isn't the way we want to move forward. We also want to move forward in a manner that we say yes and not no and put barriers in front of folks. So we're really trying to ascertain what's preventing folks from feeling successful as they apply or reapply. And so I just want you to know that that's a focus for us. The one piece that Jody spoke of, we have had the great ability to have our, when we post a position, into Winocular, it feeds into Indeed. So we're increasing our applicant pool by automatically putting, having our vacancies flow out onto Indeed. And so we're working on things like that as well to improve technology.
Well, I think customer service is a real big key, and I think there are certain things that you should look at and look at that as a metric. I know these 3 metrics don't have numbers attached to them, and I'm assuming they will at some point. But for the generalist, how long does it take you to get back to people who have called and left messages? Because I hear that a lot of people call and people are busy and they can't get through to ask a question right away. So I would think some of the customer service things should be embedded in this as well. I think that would be very helpful.
Thank you. Karen?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I thank you for all the work that you are doing. We're definitely moving in the right direction with Dr. Asplin's experience and all of you folks on board, and particularly with the customer service piece. We, as Mrs. Goodwin said, I think we have room to grow, but we're definitely showing improvement, and I want to thank you for that. I have one particular thing when I look at recruitment and retention of teachers, which is at the heart of goal 1 going forward, and I look at our current staff and the challenges that we're facing as a community. I want to frame this with that I am pro-vaccination from every angle. And when we look at staff that are choosing to not be vaccinated, I just want to reinforce that I would prefer, instead of negatively consequencing them and removing the benefits of the 10 days of COVID pay that vaccinated teachers are getting, that we look to a positive reinforcer with a outside sponsor or partner that would offer monetary rewards for vaccination. When I look at retention, recruitment, any work that we do in this organization, whether it's in schools or with families, a positive reinforcer is going to be a lot more productive than a negative, particularly with the outstanding teachers and staff that we have. So that's just my particular input, and again, framing that with being pro-vaccination. Thank you.
Bridget?
Thank you. I'm very encouraged to see the growth of this team, even just seeing here physically how it's built out. And I know I've spoken about this before, but one of my concerns in the past was it felt like that HR wasn't being addressed, and a lot of it was that there was no people there to do the jobs that was so important to do. So I'm very impressed, Dr. Foster, about how we're moving towards this. I know it's a large elephant that will take time, and you're also coming up against the, like you said, the labor issues and workforce issues, excuse me. And I know that there aren't metrics on there, but and I thought through it as thinking, I mean, there could be, to Mrs. Goodwin's point, some areas lower down on the totem, lower down more granularly. But, and I don't know that you would be able to put some of the metrics in some of these because of the challenges economically with the job market. But one of the ones I wanted to ask you about more is, you know, one of the things when I think about retaining someone, once we get them, we want to keep them here and then, you know, train them up or what have you. And so professional development obviously being key, but really the focus on, you know, and Mrs. Goodwin again said the customer service is just their overall experience and the culture. And so whether that's training, I mean, is that one of your discussions as far as a primary goal as well? Because like I said, once they're here, we really need to ensure we're fostering that environment and it helps us to achieve all of the other goals, but also keep them here. And also there's a financial benefit to it that we stay out of risky issues. So any thoughts to that?
Well, let me respond to that. And I think as part of our larger entire strategic plan, training and development, professional development are woven in all areas. And I think we are really trying to figure out where all that fits. But you're going to see that kind of as a theme going through. Also on the operations side when we start to talk about training. So yes, we're aware of that. We're working closely with Dr. Asplin and Mr. Renoff, trying to make sure as an organization we make the right choices in terms of professional development and training development. So it's comprehensive, it's appropriate, and we can move people in the right direction and provide them opportunities. So we are looking at that very closely.
Yeah, and I'll just follow up that we've had lots of conversations, and I think it's a matter of where it's going to fall, looking at developing across all levels, developing, you know, our classified employees, our instructional employees, and administrators, or allowing people to even move across levels. So we've had lots of conversations, just kind of figuring out where to position that within the plan.
Do you guys have a sense, I know, and this is maybe an unfair question, but do you have a sense of timeline, like that you have a goal to execute on that? Because again, I think those take time to even get those going. And if we're getting people in here, we need to keep them. So I don't know if you guys have thought about the timeline of that, or Dr. Asplin.
As soon as possible.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I'll ask you next meeting how that's going, I guess is what I'm going to do.
Tom?
Thanks. I'm going to go quickly because I know we've got more goals to go through. I appreciate Dr. Foster being here. We've seen a lot of incredible changes since you've been here. I know that we talked the last time about customer service and we did a deep dive on the benefit plan, and I really did appreciate that time to talk about that. I still want to just throw that back out there to try and find a way to offer some sort of concierge service on the benefit plan to our employees as we go down the road, whether you break that up in pods or by school, or having an expert who can answer those kinds of questions or facilitate it, not just from a customer service standpoint, but it's an opportunity to start talking up some of the cost containment strategies around being self-funded through a benefit plan like Blue Book, like our pharmaceutical plan, all those different kinds of things, our mental health services that we don't. So while I have you on the phone, don't forget we do this is a great way to keep bringing our costs down as it relates to our. So I just throw that out there as something to think about while you're going through your strategies and your changes. Thank you. I think this is terrific.
One thing just to mention with the customer service, and I didn't dive as much into it, but our generalists, they're assigned to schools, so all cost centers and all schools are divided, and so either Kaylin or Valita is the go-to person. And so our goal with that is that every employee in the district knows the one person that they contact in HR, so either it's Kaylin or Valita. And so we're continuing to really get that word out there. And so as the generalist, they would answer all general questions. You have a question about drop, when can I enter? Just general questions. They first talk to the generalist, and then when it dives into, I actually want to go into drop, they'll connect you directly with that person in risk management that will meet with you to actually set the date. Or if you're going on leave, they'll direct you to the salary specialist that will really dive into the actual calendar and to when your days begin, when your 60th day would be, if you're taking FMLA leave. And we've had a lot of great feedback from the principals. They're meeting every month with the principals, and Alana, as the other generalist, is doing it more from the recruiting end, meeting with the principals every month. What openings do you have? What can we do to help fill positions? So all of that is new, that's just been put into place, but we've had a lot of positive feedback from our cost centers and our schools. So, like I said, keep sharing with us as you hear things, but that's kind of a little bit of an overview of how they fit into our organization. So we were really blessed to have the addition of the 3 positions in HR.
Tom, you finished? All right, thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Dr. Foster and Mr. Dumas and the Human Resources team. We really appreciate all that you do. Our next one is our communications goal. And as they come up, I just wanted to mention one thing about retention. I know we talked about that just briefly just a few minutes ago, but research does show that retention of employees has mostly to do with belonging and purpose. Belonging in your environment and having a real purpose and working interdependently with your coworkers. And even more than salary. And salary is really used, to bring people on board, you need to have a good salary schedule. But once you're on board, it's about belonging and purpose and interdependency within that. And our professional development, we're going to have to grow our professional development area department in order to meet all these needs that we're talking about in training. So, all right. So with that, I'll turn it over to Craig Maniglia for our communications goal.
Thank you, Dr. Asplin. Good morning, board. First off, I'd like to echo a statement Dr. Asplin said earlier, in that this plan has really brought this whole school district together. As you've noticed when you've seen the tables, we have people that are on everybody's team that normally may not even speak together. So, so the one thing that's really good about that is that we're all here, working as a team, and for the success of all. So that's really great. I'll introduce my team first, who I can't be more proud of, because communication is a really hot topic right now, as you've seen in social media and news. And so we've been working around the clock on a lot of different areas, and all these folks here have come up really big for this plan, not only to create it, but also to do the actual goal. So we have Joe Benswanger here, the Director of Technology, IT Technology, and then we have Kelsey Wheely here. She's the Media Specialist. I have Dr. Ron DePillo here, who helped champion this goal with me. I have Brian Hirsch over here, who is a strategy lead on one of the strategies in our goal. And I have Mina Azrab here, who is a strategy lead on one of our others. Jennifer Anderson is a strategy lead for our volunteer, but she's actually out doing her job. She's at the interagency mentoring seminar down to Van Vazel today. So she's speaking right now. So I said it'd be more important for her to do that than be here. So if there are questions to that, I'm sure Brian or myself will be able to answer that. We also have two people on the goal that haven't been determined yet. One is a parent engagement liaison who was just recently hired or in the final process of being hired, who will join and take over one of the strategies that we co-put together with the group based on its job description and what we think is needed there. And then we have a person to be determined in HR who will join our team, because that is a very important part of communications. So as we all know, communication is a goal that winds its way throughout the entire district. It touches every department in school and is critical to the transparency between families in our district. So saying that, when we put this plan together, we thought, how do we do that where it's student-centered, family-centered, but also employee effective? So that's a big challenge, and I think this plan kind of gets us to where we want to be, at least as a starting point. So the goal itself is to collaborate and engage with school communities to support the achievement of our students. And why we picked this was to promote an atmosphere with internal and external stakeholders that is transparent and informative by building partnerships, utilizing engaging communication strategies. And I think that we'll be able to tell that it's successful if we create meaningful collaboration partnerships with all key players in our school communities, including staff, families, and the broader community. This requires clear and transparent communications, authentic solicitation of feedback, and identification of opportunities for partnership. So all those are going to be found in our strategies below. Some of our big highlighted North Star metrics will be: we'd like to increase the percentage of families who strongly agree with district communications and that they're effective in the district's parent, that are effective. We'll get this to the parent district survey, where we currently sit at 85%, and we're going to try to bring that to 88% over a 5-year period. And you say, well, wow, that's not really a big deal. But when you're already sitting very high in parent engagement, it's really hard to move that needle even higher. But we do have strategies along with video and other type of mechanisms that we think we'll be able to grow this, especially with the newsletter that's coming out of HR now and the two-way communication that we currently have going on. So with that, I'll go into some of our strategies here, or the 4 strategies we have. We have strategy 1 is strengthen our brand through effective marketing and two-way district and school-based communications. And that strategy lead is with Mina and also Kelsey as the media part to that. Strategy 2 is support families as partners in their children's education. Strategy 3 is collaborate with volunteers, community foundations, and organizations to support our staff and students. And strategy 4 is to build stronger platforms for effective, timely, internal employee communications. So strategy 1, to strengthen our brand through effective marketing and two-way district communication. Again, it was Mina and our social media specialist, Tori. So the rationale is to cultivate the trust and confidence and reinforce the top achieving status and preeminence of Sarasota County Schools with all of our stakeholders. And now we'll know that we were successful because the Sarasota County Schools brand will define people and professionals synonymous with academic excellence, mastery in the arts, and athletic preeminence, who care deeply about working as one for the success of all. So that's how we're going to do that. And we do have some metrics to go with that, but we'll increase our organic social media, we'll improve the current 2021 baseline scores for annual parent surveys, and we will optimize school communications and increase parent usage of school email, text, apps, and digital comms. Strategy 2 was support families as partners in their children's education, and that is led by Brian Hirsch and also our newly hired or soon to be hired parent engagement coordinator. So the rationale behind this is families are critical to the success of our individual students. We have to communicate with our families all the time so that the student can be supported in the way they need. So we'll know this is successful if the district facilitates and leverages opportunities managed and championed by this at the school level to meet the needs of each school community where parents can more effectively support their children or their child. That's a big task, and as you see, the district's very serious about this task because it went out and hired someone to manage it, and then we'll work with each school individually to make sure that we get this. So I like that this is under my control because I do have some background in this, but I do like the fact that families first, along with our teachers working together, the child will have a much better chance of surviving, what's going on out there. The third strategy we have is collaborate with volunteers, community foundations, and organizations to support our staff and students. So volunteers, our rationale here to pick this as a strategy is volunteers, business partners, mentors, guest speakers are essential to supporting students' social, educational, and school financial initiatives which promote equity and dignity for all of our students. So as I said earlier, Jennifer Anderson, who runs our volunteer office, she's out today mentoring at a mentoring engagement, trying to recruit mentors and participate in that for Sarasota County Schools. So again, a lot of these strategies are sort of in place, but as we built this plan, we saw a need to get our people out in the community more, and so we're jumping on those opportunities. And we'll know this is successful by showing measurable data that demonstrate gains in areas that all need improvement. The community supports the overall efforts through increased volunteerism, business partnership, philanthropic funding, while advancing learning gains for all students. High metrics here are increase the number of volunteer and business partners, specifically business partners. I think currently we're sitting almost at 11,000 volunteers, and our policies currently don't allow for volunteers to really get in our schools unless they're essential. So we are chomping at the bit, this office, to get our volunteers back into schools because it's such a meaningful aspect for kids to have someone that's not their teacher tell them what to do, to actually sit there and help them, read to them. And so we're really waiting for COVID to back off a little bit to allow that to happen on a more regular basis. And another one is engage volunteers and business partners in proven results-driven programs. We'd like to see 50 volunteers per school. So some of our metrics in our PIM lay out some of these areas that we're trying to do. And you don't have the PIM in front of you now, but there was a lot of work that went into what is attainable and what can we actually do to drive these goals. And then for time reasons, I'll just skip on to the fourth strategy, build stronger systems for effectively timely internal communications. And that's Director Binswanger over here, Joe, my friend, and through communications, we work very closely together on a lot of different platforms, making sure that everything works. And the rationale for this strategy, well, it'll ensure that all stakeholders have important, timely information to make informed decisions regarding our students' learning achievement. So we'll know this is successful if we see increased use of systems like Microsoft Office and SCS intranet that we're in the process of creating now, and the resilience on the systems and perform daily internal communication. So the most important part of this plan was to actually fix some of the things that we currently use, as well as implement new procedures for us to take advantage of, for instance, intranet. It seems like a simple thing, but we don't really have one right now. So through Joe and Jody and I were working on creating a really nice, robust intranet, so our staff has a place to go to find information that not necessarily be out in the public. And then along with that is taking advantage of the current Microsoft Office technology like email that hopefully we'll be able to get each individual where they sit in a database so that we're get rid of paper, so that I can find out that Brian Hirsch is the director of this and here's where he sits, here's his phone number and email, without having to search through papers to figure out who he is. So a lot of this stuff is available to us. We're going to work really hard to get there. I appreciate the opportunity, and I'm sure there'll be some questions, so I wanted to zip through this because you've had time to read it, and we're here to answer them.
Bridget.
I'll be fast just because I know we're tight on time, and I would argue, I said at the beginning that was the most important one, but every single one that comes up, I'm like, this also plays a very pivotal role in the academic piece. But to me, when I think of challenges that we've ever found ourselves in front of, I think a lot of it, if you were to reflect, is that there's always this opportunity within the communication piece of it, where that breakdown has occurred and maybe exacerbated an issue, big or small. And so I'm very glad this is a priority. I think it intertwines with every single thing. I'm encouraged with the parent engagement coordinator. I know we talked about it. Our schools have so much going on as it is, but how can we support them to provide that communication at their level? Because at the central office, it just doesn't have that same connectivity and bridging those partnerships and relationships. So I am very encouraged to see that. And I don't even know if one really, to really meet the needs of what we need to really bridge that gap with our parents and at the school level. So I'm encouraged to see how that develops out. And I assume in the PIM, and again, because that's what I want, I'm going to be able to drill down a little bit more detailed, and then I'll just follow up with you with more questions. So.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With the collaboration with our community foundations and looking at the extraordinary support that they provide for Goal 1 and all of our goals, actually, is there any document or any central location where we have what every foundation is doing? So not only the foundations can see what they're doing, but what others are doing in collaboration with the district as well as our schools, so that we are getting the best use and the highest quality out of that extraordinary support and those partnerships. Do we have any document that reflects all of that?
I'll let Brian Hirsch talk to that for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rose. Thanks for that great question. Yes, the short answer is yes. And it's a great insight to help even make that more meaningful. The funding is absolutely tracked for all of our philanthropic organizations. We're very aware of where those go. And I think we can make more visible to that. I know we've often reported to you and bring in our community philanthropy organizations to report about their impact, but I think it's very fair that we can make something that's a little more streamlined and accessible to show that as well.
Well, I think they want to help so much in the overlap of who might want to be doing the same things. I just think that our end product could provide increase the quality, if that's possible, with the uniqueness of Sarasota's foundations. But I look forward to seeing something of that nature in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Brian, in addition to any monetary ones, I know there's organizations out there that have groups of people that come in some of the different schools and partner and work with the schools. So I think some of those organizations that have adopted a school for volunteering or something, I think would be important to know too. Jane. The mic didn't go on. I saw you push. You're on. Oh,
Just push once.
There you go. You're on.
Mina, how many pages on our website?
In the tens of thousands. If we count PDFs and other documents, probably more.
That concerns me because it becomes difficult sometimes to find things. I've had a dialogue with a parent in the last couple of days trying to find some things on the website. Is there any way that we can facilitate making the search function easier? Because sometimes I search for things, maybe I don't search properly, but I don't find them. The strategic plan of old, which we never reviewed in 100 years, that was always difficult to find.
Well, I tell you, Jane, I'm happy to report that one of our activities is to optimize digital comms. And as of this week, we're about 50% complete with the SEO of the internal search of our website. There are a lot of shortcuts being created. An example would be /portal, /Blackboard. We're going to present some other items later after the goal and strategic plan presentation, but we are focusing on keyword search, beefing that up, and that's part of strategy 1 of goal 4.
Great, great, thank you.
Thank you.
It's good, but it's just sometimes difficult to find things.
Tom?
As you do strategy 1 and increase our brand awareness, I think it's really important to make sure that we understand that public schools and vouchers and choice and all those kinds of things are falling into this conversation rapidly. And I think that our differential really needs to be highlighted in the biggest possible way. So while you're examining that, I would make sure that our differential is clearly pronounced.
Thank you.
And thank you all for all you're doing and will be doing in the next 5 years.
Thank you very much. I'm very proud to be here.
All right. Thank you, Craig. Thank you, communications team. Really appreciate that. Our next goal is goal number 5, and that's going to be Jody's team and Mitzi's team, efficient and effective operations through fiscal stewardship. Jody, we'll go ahead and have you kick it off for us.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you everybody for this awesome opportunity to present on our goal. We, like other teams, are super excited about what's going on with the strategic plan. I think that we as a district have done a lot of great things, but we've done a lot of things. And so I think what a strategic plan has done under the leadership of Dr. Asplin is focus. And I hope what you're hearing today across all of the goals is a lot of linkages, a lot of common themes, because when we started to get together with people around the district about what does the strategic plan need to look like, there are a lot of common themes that we could quickly hone in and focus on. So let us talk a little bit specifically about Goal 5, efficient and effective operations through fiscal stewardship. What that means, I think, to Mitzi and I, we're going to tag team the presentation today. What that means to us on the operations side and on the finance side is making sure there's accountability in everything we do with our funds, not only to the local community, but certainly to the entire state, because they provide some of our funding. But it's making sure that we are accountable with what we're doing with our money. And then in operations, we know that we want to run based on our levels of service in our departments. We want to run as effectively and as efficiently as possible. And we know how to do that. We know how to benchmark those services because at the end of the day, we know we provide a service, but every time we can be as efficient as possible on our side of the house, what that allows us to do is spend money in the classroom, on teachers, on the best personnel that we can get. And so really, that is kind of the meat and potatoes of what I think this goal is talking about today. Getting us in that direction, we've got some key metrics that are going to guide us in terms of how we're doing on our overall goal, and Mitzi's going to talk a little bit about those.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Thank you again. It is a pleasure to be here. I just couldn't help but think when we all walked up here, it was kind of like the award for the best drama series where everybody comes up on the stage. Sorry. It was very funny. Anyways, so as far as our metrics, we have 3 kind of North Star goals. One is the board's policy, maintaining a fund balance that is greater, or a financial condition ratio greater than 7.5%. What that does is it provides a consistent measurement against all other school districts in the state. Everyone measures it the same way, and it kind of gives you a good indicator, or the public a good indicator of the financial health of the school district. So we thought that was very important. The second metric is a little squishy. It's about increasing the percent of operational key performance indicators as a percentage. So what that means is we're so diverse in the operational area, right? You have finance, you have transportation, you have food and nutrition services, you have construction. I mean, it is a huge array of support services to keep this big machine moving forward for our kids. So each one of them knows what they need in order to move their areas forward, what it creates progress and maintains service levels. So they all have their own share of key performance indicators. So from a 30,000-foot level, it's how many of those are we hitting? How many of those targets are we meeting? And then finally, we want to reduce the percentage of operational expenditures in our budget. So right now they sit at 16.3%, which I feel is pretty good. But we'd like to get it down even lower because, again, the idea is for every dollar we don't spend on support, it's a dollar spent on direct instruction. So that's our big goal.
And Mitzi, as I looked around the room, I forgot I talked about the team, but I didn't introduce everybody. So I apologize for that. Gosh, I think I was stumbling
Me too,
too much over the
apologize.
words. So Jason Harris, our director of transportation, I called Jason the other day, and he was actually driving a bus, so I couldn't talk. Tamika Hannon, to my left, Krista Kurtner, Joe Binswanger, Don Hampton, BJ Grant, Tracy Brizendine, and Sarah Dan. So this is the core of the team that has put this together and will be our strategy leads moving forward. So my apologies, guys, for not introducing you to start off. So our first strategy really ties to, again, what we thought the overall goal was, and I'll describe what that is, and that's maximize efficiency operations. And so Mitzi had referred to our department metrics. What you're going to see from operations here very quickly is they've all been working very hard on a year-end report, which summarizes last year. In that year-end report, some of you that have been around a while will remember this, but basically like cost per square foot, cost for maintenance and custodial, cost for transportation, on-time delivery rates, meals per labor hour, all those are key metrics in every department that they use as gauges to say, I'm doing a good job, I'm running efficiently, or I need to look here. That's going to come to you in a summary report here very, very quickly for last year. They're working on that now, but that becomes the measures in every department to make sure we're running efficiently and effectively. Again, that's driven by service level, right? So if we tell transportation we want to pick up some more stops somewhere, that's a change in that level of service, and so that has to be part of that conversation too. So a big piece of it is making sure that's done everywhere. We continually look at those measures, we incorporate new measures, and they drive our decision making in terms of what we're doing on our departments. The other thing we talked about, and we talked earlier, and specifically in HR, about information systems, Winocular. One of the things we know, we've got a lot of resources in the district, we've got a lot of systems in the district, but we don't know that they're integrated. We don't know that we're all using a system that makes sense for all of us, and are we pigeonholed with different types of systems? For example, we have a couple of different work order systems in the district. Do we need a couple, or is one, a consolidated work order system with a call-in center, maybe the best way to go? So a big piece of this goal is looking at all of these systems. Tamika is going to head us up on that and work with Joe. But what are the systems? Are they the best systems, and are we all utilizing them so we're not spending money in places we don't need to? Other things like SOPs, just making sure that they're all out there and they're all published so we all know how we're operating and can take advantage of those efficiencies. And then back to the zero-based budgeting process that Krista and Mitzi run, we felt on the operations team and the finance team that was been a tremendous exercise in the last few years. We want to continue to refine that because what it forces us to do is look at the levels of service every year. What are we doing? Is it something critical that we're doing that supports the strategic plan? Okay, we continue to do it. We focus on it. Is it something that we've been doing we don't need to do? So those zero-based budgeting conversations are not only about the budget, they're about service level and what's going on in departments. So super important as we move forward. So Mitzi, strategy 2.
Okay, so strategy 2 is to provide intentional development for our operational employees. So a number of years ago, I think back when I first started in 07, 08, we had a whole area devoted to professional development of our classified staff. And through the recession, it kind of went away. And so right now we've been kind of floundering, and we feel like developing career ladders for this level of staff. For me, success would be creating career service employees here. They work their way throughout the district and maybe move on to administration, maybe move over to another area, but they continue to have the ability to grow professionally. And as we all know, institutional knowledge is invaluable. And so the more you can keep your employees here and have them pass on that knowledge and the development of standard operating procedures, it just kind of maintains the integrity of your operations overall. And by doing this, we also want to hopefully provide a sense of belonging for all of our classified staff. I think sometimes they feel like they're not necessarily appreciated, and they should be, and they are very valued, and we want to make sure that we have things in place for them to feel like they can move forward in the district. So that was kind of the purpose of this strategy.
Our third strategy is something I think we've done in bits and pieces and parts across the district, but we really thought we wanted to make this part of the strategic plan to kind of align with the county's doing. The county does a great job of talking about sustainability and how that's interwoven in all their operations, and we really wanted to mirror that as being a partner and a leader in this county. So sustainability rose to the level, I think, of the strategic plan so that we start to think of it comprehensively across the district. There are a lot of great things going on, but for example, our re-roof at Booker Middle, we had talked about that, and the board asked us to do kind of a look at what does solar look like on that roof. Those are the types of things and types of decisions we want to have in the back of our mind. So whatever it is we're doing, we're looking at it from a sustainable perspective and saying, is there something we can do in terms of how we're tweaking the way we're operating, what we're doing, what we're implementing, that would provide a more sustainable approach, and then track the successes in that, carbon emissions, I'm looking that way and Jason's sitting over here, but certainly with electric buses, we've talked about that. That's going to be a great program that Jason's going to roll out on transportation. We can look at electric white fleet. So over the course of time, how do we make sure when we're purchasing, when we're doing different things, we've got the sustainability focus, and there are good things that we can do by certainly just making sure we're focused on those types of things. So we've got a bunch of them listed here. We've got some great ideas, but then making sure we're integrating into school sites too, with gardens, with farm to table. Those are all wonderful things that we think coincide with sustainability, and we're excited about having that as a strategic plan goal.
And finally, our last strategy is to create a district-wide customer service culture, again, like interwoven throughout the entire district. The idea is to make sure that your interactions are, you walk away feeling valued and heard. And so unfortunately, sometimes that doesn't always happen. And even if you're not getting the outcome you want, we want you to walk away pleased with your interaction. So in order to do that, we kind of need to assess our needs, figure out what kind of training is necessary so that we can get to a point where it is ingrained in our day-to-day operations, that customer service is always the priority. So that was, and I think that's kind of across all of the different goals, but this one to us was very important from the operational side.
So in summary, we as the other teams are super excited about this strategic plan. I think we've got an awesome team assembled, and this is really just a piece of the team. So we will call in resources, for example, on this customer service piece. We'll be people from all aspects, all school sites working on that initiative. So we're excited. We think that the goals that we have, the strategy we have a meaningful impact on the district, and that's why we chose them to the level of strategic plan. So with that, on behalf of Mitzi and myself and the team, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you all.
Thank you. I have a couple comments. You talk about customer service. Now, you used to keep track of, with your work orders, how long it took, for repairs or for, technology question to get, or even how long it took something to get from the print shop. Are you still going to be following that?
Yes, absolutely.
Keeping up on those work orders?
Absolutely. That's part of the annual report you're going to get from operations, and we will provide that information. Certainly in certain areas, open and close time is really important. But the other thing that's woven between a couple different goals here is measuring customer service, right? And so we used to do some of that. So we got to figure out what's a good way to measure customer service across departments, with students, with teachers, with parents in the community. So a piece of that also is customer service measuring. So yes.
And I know at one time we had a suggestion box that actually gave rewards to people who, if their ideas were implemented and if their ideas saved money, it was even better. I don't know if we could go back to having that suggestion box we had long ago. I guess there were boxes around the area. Don't know what you're going to get, but
Well, I remember, and I don't remember who the award went to, but I remember somebody who had put a suggestion in one of those boxes coming up and being recognized by the board because of the amount of savings that was brought forth by that suggestion. So I think that's a great suggestion, no pun intended.
Yeah, I'd put it in the box if I could find it.
Got it. But no, that's certainly something we'll make sure we talk about. But that was a great way to bring up some new thinking.
And also make the employees feel part of it. Tom?
In strategy 3, the sustainability piece, as you know, I'm all out about that. But I would tell, I know Dr. Asplund told us about a group that at Pineview that was working on a problem to solve that we had here within the district. I would say that we have some students and some family members within the district, whether it's clubs or whatnot. I know we do a lot of farm-to-table work in some of our schools. I would tell you, your best ideas for that is going to be in with the classroom, and look for that, because they're chomping at the bit.
I would agree, and I think this rose to this level only because a few years ago we started to meet with a few of those groups, and they were very active in numbers of schools. But it was a secondary thought. It was something that was on somebody's plate that wasn't part of their main position, and that's exactly why it is now in your strategic plan, because you're exactly right. But it's got to be part of our goals, so that it becomes part of somebody's job to do those things and make sure we're contributing and honoring what's going on in the classroom and with students and with parents. And so it's bringing all that together. So thank you for that comment. That's perfect.
Thank you. Bridget?
I just want to say, and I know you mentioned this, a lot of the details are going to be in the PIM from the KPIs, but it is extraordinary, and I don't know if many people necessarily realize the breadth of the operations that go into this district. And so, and to have the operations be 16.3, I'm actually that's pretty impressive when you consider all of the things that we do. But keep up the great work. Thank you. I appreciate all the measurables, because I know they're deeply embedded into your process.
Jane?
Well, I want to thank all of you, because I know what a rough job you've had in the last 18 months, 2 years, how many? Seems like 15 years, right? But I want to thank you all for the jobs that you're doing. I know Jody has his issues with salary and keeping those wonderful people that he trains in his IT department, which does a fabulous job. I mean, when we hired our superintendent, the people that were here doing that search were, agog for all the wonderful work that you do. Sarah's done fabulous job, and I just want to say that this whole thing about sustainability, and I think not only do we need to look at a sustainability from a green building standpoint and that energy conservation, but we also need to look at our ag programs, because I don't think that we are doing all that we can do in this community. There are still ranchettes and farms out east, and people that want to be involved in that. And my work with the fair and the fair board has brought me, to a better understanding of all of that. But I hope that we will be encouraging some of those programs this year, and that we'll keep Florida House.
I just wanted to comment. As Ms. Goodwin knows about the property out at, it's now actually has its own address, the farm. Trib Jennings, David Jones, a principal at Sarasota High, myself, Don Hampton. There's some great plans that I think are in the future to expose high school students, obviously, to agriculture education and where it can lead, college or career, but also our younger students, so that they can understand just the whole dynamics of how food is grown, but also the potential careers, and they lead in different avenues. I have an ag degree, so it's just a great opportunity to expose our children to how food is produced and grown, and also animal education as well. So there's some great plans in the future that we're working towards.
Well, I really appreciate that, and as I said, there's a place for you on the fair board. But I really love some of these programs, and I think they really are the kinds of things that a lot of students really enjoy and will be interested in a career. How are you all doing in terms of COVID and your employees coming back to work? I think particularly of my friend over here in transportation. How are we doing?
We're doing all right. We're adapting to the situation. It fluctuates. Some days are better than others. I apologize. I'm sorry. It fluctuates from day to day. Some days we have quite a few out with COVID, or they're out getting tested, and then some days that we're okay and we're able to cover a lot of the routes. But have to give it to my team for going above and beyond. They are out there. They're working outside of their job description and their main duties, and they're out on buses, and we're making sure that their students get to school, to and from school safely.
Well, we do appreciate them, and parents appreciate them as well. I hear from a lot of parents about how they love their bus drivers and really appreciate, and we appreciate what you're doing in food service. And facilities, I know, is a big problem. How are we doing there?
We're struggling, but just like, sorry.
Okay, now, okay.
You're really struggling.
He's struggling.
We're struggling a little bit, but we're doing okay. Just like Jason, we got our people out there. We're doing, we got managers out there doing cleaning in the schools at night. We're shifting people wherever we can. We're utilizing people from food service or construction services to go out and help us clean. We're making it work. We're still short, still very short and still very hurting, but at the same time, we're doing what we need to do to get it done.
Well, thank you all.
You know, the same with food nutrition services. What's been amazing, I think, and I do believe, Dr. Asplin, just your philosophy, is everybody's been pitching in. So whether it's facilities coming to help food service or transportation, people from the landing, school board members, just everybody's working together to make sure we're taking care of our students. And that's, for me, that's been inspiring. I know the food nutrition services team, everybody's been out at schools, but when they see other people coming alongside us, it just makes the heavy work a little lighter, and it definitely encourages everybody. So it's been wonderful how everybody's pulled together through this.
Great.
I want to point out strategy 3, and I'm glad we're looking at that area, and that's the environmental sustainability. You know, we're looking to electric buses and battery-powered lawn maintenance, and that we're looking at, you've got your upfront costs, but the maintenance on an electric bus is, just make sure those prongs are working when you plug it in. That you've got an energy management team that is looking at that and looking at building more efficient, energy-efficient buildings and everything, and I applaud you for that, because that'll not only save today, but on in the future and forward thinking. I appreciate that. As will our students. And I think that's all we have. Is there anything you need to wrap up on your, thank you guys.
Just want to say thank you to all of you in operations for the fine job that you do every day, and then also for working on the strategic plan and kind of leading us in the right direction and focusing us in the right direction, and then working on COVID every single day. I know you've just been dealing with that every day, and we really appreciate all that you do. And then overall, just I don't know if I know we have about 40 minutes for the next 3 items, which I think we can do that. I didn't know if the board had anything else you wanted to say about the strategic plan, but I just wanted to just thank the community again for all their input over the last few months. Also, the board, thank you for your input as well. And we're looking for additional feedback as we move forward. Again, there's a working plan, and we want to continue to move forward and listen to your feedback as we go. And then also to our staff, I just have to say we have remarkable staff, as you saw today. I'm just so proud of everybody here in our county. We have fantastic employees that work so hard, way above and beyond every single day. So I appreciate each and every one of them, and I'm very proud of them. So thank you. And then thank you to Corey Gordon. I don't know if she's still on. She is. Thank you, Corey, for your efforts as well as we move forward, and we'll be in touch with you as we continue to meet and move this forward with the PIM piece, and then we'll be coming back to the board again, I know, for another update pretty soon.
Yes, thank you all so much.
Okay, so next on the agenda, so 3 items in 40 minutes. I know we can do this, right? So that means about 15 minutes each. So the next item is year at a glance, and I'm going to turn it over to Chris Renoff, but year at a glance is something that I know that our community has really asked for as well, which is, when we're looking at our grade levels, we're looking at our courses, how do we know what is being taught each week or each quarter or each semester? And then what standards are being taught within those courses? And then what instructional materials and resources are we using? And so we tried to put all of that in one place for our community to be able to click into through our website. And we have phenomenal folks here who have put that together in record time for us. And so I'll go ahead and turn it over to Chris.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And yes, we will meet your timeline. First and foremost, I just want to go ahead and really turn it over to the experts. But Katie Kephart, she represents our elementary curriculum specialist. So Katie, thank you. Obviously, Sue Meckler, our curriculum director for middle schools, and Catherine Kokos, our curriculum director for high schools. This is a really, really exciting project. And again, kudos to our parents and our families. also to board members, because I know that you all had shared some insight with regards to this, and Dr. Asplund, some experience from St. John's. This is a project that's in its infancy stage, will continue to evolve, but hopefully it'll be a great tool and support for our families as they're wondering about curriculum and instruction for their students. So with that, ladies, take it away.
Thank you, Chris. Good morning, everyone. So it's been very exciting to sit here today and hear the word that's been repeated over and over, excited. As I heard each group present, you can tell that the enthusiasm for the work that we've been doing is full of excitement and opportunity for the future here in Sarasota County Schools. The new resource we want to share with you today is called Year at a Glance, or we call it YAG for short, because you know in education we use a lot of acronyms. I would be remiss if I wouldn't give a huge shout out to the program specialist. This is their work. We're talking about a K-12 continuum here in which the program specialists across all levels came together to create this incredible resource. Again, it was to meet that goal of transparency for our community, stakeholders, as well as for our families, and it's really built off of the instructional focus guides that have been part of our work for years. The specialists really took the guides, which are for our teachers, and created documents that would be meaningful for the viewers of this. We've included all of the courses that are from the Department of Education, as well as the major topics and the themes that are taught for each course, and an approximate pacing guide that are associated with those. The one thing we want to say, though, is we know the classroom teacher is still the best resource to go to in having those conversations regarding content and pacing for each course. Do we have the PowerPoint up?
We do. Thanks, John.
Okay, thank you. So really talking about, you can go ahead and go to next, please. Thank you. So here you'll see that we have nearly 100 YAGs created for the K-12 focus, and this is on the core curriculum for each level, as well as common elective courses and encore courses K-12. Thank you. First, we're going to take a look at the middle school YAGs. One of the things we want you to know is that we came together to look at what needed to be in common across all of them. The first example you see here is from 8th grade social studies, which is our civics course. So every YAG has a note to parents to begin that explanation of what they are viewing. And we also included that note to indicate that the course sequence as well as pacing may vary. Next. The second example is from 7th grade science, and in there you will see that we have the course description, which gives parents an understanding of the overview of what students will learn within that course, and we've also included any additional information for honors, advanced, international baccalaureate, or the Cambridge pre-ACE programs that may be associated with those courses. The next example is a PE example, which shows, in addition to the note to parents and the course description, you will see a direct link to CPALMS. CPALMS is Florida's Curriculum Planning and Learning Management System, and this website provides specific information about each particular course. Later, you're going to see a live demonstration, which will also take you to the Family Resource page within CPALMS, which provides additional resources for our parents. On the next slide, you'll see an example of what that looks like. If I were to click on the link directly from PE into CPALMS, it shows me all of the standards, 50 of them, that are associated with that semester-long class, which is required for middle school students. Next, you'll see an example of our content and our format, specifically for 6th grade English Language Arts. This is using our new Study Sync program, which is part of our transition and bridge to the best standards for next year. You can see the essential question tied for each unit, as well as the sample text associated with those themes. The next example then shows you a slightly different look from a math perspective, which gives you the unit of study, but also those essential unit sequences of skills for each of the units of study. Next, I'm really flying here. I'm going. For algebra, you'll see that every one of our YAGs includes course resources, and I think this is a really important component. So it shows you the core textbook associated with that. So the students could go into my SCS, access their textbook, and show their parents exactly what they're learning. Supplemental resources, so in this example, we have Khan Academy, which is often used in our algebra classes, and then the FSA portal, which is currently available for resources for parents. And now I'm going to turn it over to Katie. Kelly Ellington wasn't able to be with us today, but Katie is here representing elementary.
Good morning. Okay, so now we're looking at elementary content, specifically a social studies kindergarten example. And here you'll notice the course description that is at the beginning, as well as a link to CPALMS again. And then the second piece where the arrow is showing the link to the required instruction per the Florida statutes. We have this under social studies, although it does cover multiple areas, but it tends to show up in social studies, so we have it here. As we continue to look at the social studies example, we are looking at the format here. We can see that we begin the organization by quarter off to the left there in orange, and then by units of study, and finally by the benchmarks. And each one of those is hyperlinked back to CPALMS as well, so that our viewers can see the information and resources there. Next up, we'll look at the elementary science content and format. Here is a 5th grade example. You'll notice off to the left there, it looks very much like social studies. And then on the right, we have zoomed in to the resource column. Here shows how students access their textbook through My SCS with specific directions for that. And then we move into looking a little further into the science one. We see that each science YAG begins with the benchmarks that are addressed all year long. Here, this allows the parents and community members to see at a glance the nature of science benchmarks that our students will apply throughout the school year. Like social studies, science is organized by quarter and then by benchmarks covered. And again, each one of those benchmarks is hyperlinked to CPALMS, where the viewers can find more information. Next up, we'll look at elementary math. Here's a 1st grade example. The first thing I want to point out are the headers in the dark yellow and darkest green there. They stand for the domains of the mathematics Florida standards, and under each domain are listed the clusters and the standards. Each standard is hyperlinked back to CPALMS as well here. I do want to point out the organization excuse me, of math is a little different than science and social studies. You'll notice off to the left are the standards, and then the standard code in the middle. And then off to the right, you can see that each standard is vertical there, and you can see what part of the year each of the standards is covered. Lastly, for elementary, we'll look at English language arts. Here is a 3rd grade example. And you'll notice that ELA is organized by unit of instruction instead of by benchmark. And that is because the standards in ELA spiral throughout the year. So we decided to go with a different organization for that. Like math, though, the quarters are shown vertically on the right, and each unit is clearly marked to show which quarter it will be taught. Then each unit, you'll notice with the small arrows, is divided into sub-skills of foundations, reading comprehension, and communication. Each skill is listed, and then the standard code is included for reference. Additionally, after each unit section, parents and community stakeholders can find both a link to CPALMS, again, for more information on all of those standards, as well as a link to Homeschool Connections that comes from our new core curriculum, Benchmark Advance. So we're going to take a look at that quickly on the next slide. Here, each unit of study for each grade level has its own homeschool connection, which provides parents with activities designed to continue the conversation about the skills and concepts that are learned in school. And that's it for elementary.
Good morning. I'm going to take you through the high school content and format. If you take a look at what you see in front of you, you'll notice an English example. In our high school, YAGs, what we've done is we've listed all courses that pertain to, say, English 1 and the standards in English 1. You'll also find English 1 Honors, Pre-IB English 1, Pre-ACE English Language, and English 1 through ESOL. So if you're in one of those courses, this YAG will be your YAG. We've included the course description on that, as well as any special notes about some of those advanced work or honors classes. On the high school ones, the next thing you'll find is the publisher information. We have done a live link from our textbooks directly to the textbook websites. That doesn't always give the parents much more than just surface level information, but we felt like that was important in the world of Google searches. It also provides the link to the student's way of accessing. Additionally, we've listed for each one of our courses the supplemental resources that as a district we promote. If there's additional resources, it's important that parents review that syllabus or that the permission forms that go home with the students. The next thing you'll see is the live links to CPOMs. Depending on how many, if you can go back, Mina. Depending on how many courses are related to that year at a glance will determine how many courses you see listed under the CPOM standards. And finally, we did include the benchmark assessment dates and any pertinent FSA information if we have it, which makes this a very dynamic document, meaning that as updates are needed, we will go in and update it, even down to providing new assessment windows annually. What you see in front of you is an example taken from one of our English language arts ones. The organization is quarter by quarter for English language arts. In the center, you'll see the unit, and what we've chosen to do for our English content is list the titles that are included in our textbook. Right now, most of our inquiries that are coming in from the outside are about what are you reading in your classes, what are you teaching our students. So we felt like including the titles out in front so people didn't have to go searching for it would be wise. On the far side, where under resources, right now you see DBQ. In Sarasota County, we use the DBQ project, which is the document-based questioning project. It's heavily aligned to strategies that promote reading, writing, and thinking, and speaking and listening. And we feel it's a good mix in our classes, and in ELA, or English Language Arts and Social Studies, you'll see it referenced. In the future, for English, we will list novels that we promote as a district, but because we're in a new adoption year, we're taking a year to figure out what are those best supplemental resources to promote as a district. So next year, you'll see that additional information. As we move to the next one, you'll see math. It's a similar organization, but very aligned to math. We have our units of study listed, as well as the concepts or topics that are covered within each unit of study. Over to the right, you see big ideas and where it falls for those parents who are looking to support their students at home. And you see a reference to Math Nation. Math Nation is widely used in our algebra and even geometry classes in some cases as a resource to help support the learning in the classroom. This is our social studies content. Content for one of our courses. As you can see to the left, you see it organized quarter by quarter. And then down the center, you have the units of study. In social studies, it's covering the ranges that are studied within that unit. And over to the right, the resources are DBQ linked again. And for science, quarter by quarter again, you see our units of study with the big ideas as well as those smaller topics that are covered in that unit. So for Unit 3 cells, they'll study cell structure and function, they'll study photosynthesis, cellular respiration, cell growth, and division. That's about the extent of it. When we get science inquiries, it's kind of asking how far do you go in some of these topics? So we wanted to show parents or viewers, these are the topics of study. The one additional piece that we've included in high school is if the course is a graduation requirement, we've put this little piece of information on there so somebody could go out and get additional information about what that might be or why it's included there. So just a reminder, these are all of the courses that we've done so far. We really did start with what we had instructional focus guides for. The instructional focus guides, as Sue mentioned, are created by our teachers. And so we felt like that would be an important starting point as we put this out there. Mina, if you want to go to the next slide. As we look to the future, we're going to be convening teams of teachers to build out our next layer of YAGs, or year at a glances. We know that we need to add our ACE courses, ELA, Science and Social Studies courses. We are going to be looking at IB and AP as well. When we look at those courses, we're going to be looking at those courses that are widely used across our schools that have ACE or IB. Additionally, we'll be looking at world language, specifically with ASL and Spanish, because those are the two most used world language courses in our district, and then branching out from there. Physical education, we're looking at expanding out. And then I did put freshman transition on there because that is a course offered at all of our high schools. There's one additional bullet that's not on here, but we did want to take a moment just to address. One of the first areas that we'll be kind of targeting is our access courses. We're partnering with Sonia and Tammy and their team to figure out where we go with that access course and how that instructional focus guide looks and what it looks like for a year at a glance. But that is one of our first next steps. And Mina's going to go ahead and take us live. I'd like you to note that we found a picture that is almost identical to Mina. We did ask him to wear a
Forgot my
green
ring.
tie today, but he must have forgotten.
It was at the bottom of the pile. Good morning, board. Mr. DeLeo, Dr. Asplin, it is my pleasure to live demo the work of our curriculum team now on our website. I'm going to go ahead and minimize this PowerPoint, and we should have the demo. Before I get into it, I do want to share with Jane, how do you get there? Maybe a couple ways. One way you can get there is /YAG. The other way you can get there is through our internal search, which we talked about, Goal 4, Strategy 1. If we type in year at a glance, I hope this works. And we should just be able to hit enter. And there it is in the green bar up top. Those are what our optimized pages, Jane, are going to look like. We have /HR, like I said, portal. We're going to do every single department and section so that it's a lot easier to access. Moving on, let's go back to the YAG page. Here you'll find actually 123 guides that were created by our all-star curriculum team. They're conveniently presented by grade and subject, split into 3 different sections, elementary, middle, and high school. And as you scroll, you can begin to see where perhaps your student, as a parent, lives. I might have a first grader, and let's see what ELA looks like for this year. So here we are. And Sue, would you like me to click on CPALMs down below? I know we had spoken.
I think we were going to do that in the elementary ELA. Is that where you are?
Yep.
Yes, that's fine.
Perfect. And we'll just run through this really quick.
Yep.
As you can see, the quarters are laid out. On the right, there is some overlap with the X's. And all these live as PDFs. You can print these. You can save these. If you have 2 kids and 7 classes apiece, there's 14 documents there you may want to save throughout the year for each of your child's education. Phase 2, this is a work in progress. Phase 2 will be the promotion of this. And what the promotion looks like will be website links on all school websites. That'll roll out. And an ongoing social media campaign. And we're playing around maybe at the beginning of each quarter because it makes a whole lot of sense to make folks aware that these exist at the beginning of each quarter. And that's all I have. Sue, if there's anything else or if there are any questions.
You were going to talk about the phone view and then go ahead and go to CPALMs, Mina?
Perfect. The phone view captured the attention of many on the team. So why the phone view? Half, less than or more than half use a phone to access our website. So of any district that we visited, I believe this is one of the only that have a working phone view of YAGs. So you can see elementary, we scroll down, middle and high. So it elegantly restacks for a phone. So it doesn't matter if you're using an iPhone, a computer, an iPad, you'll be able to access 123 documents on one single page.
And then you'll notice this is the CPALM page that we referenced before where parents could get more information. So if I'm a parent, I would click right on I'm a parent, and it would take me to this video, which we knew we didn't have the time to share with you today, but it's about 5 minutes long, and it walks them through all the various tools that are there and all of the additional resources. Mina, if you'll go to that black box at the bottom there. Yes, so these are the original student tutorials, and you can see that there are a plethora of resources for parents to support their child's learning at home based on the various courses and standards. So we just wanted to give you a glimpse of those as well, and that will be part of the district webpage as well. Also at the top of the webpage that Mina's worked on with us, you'll see that there's a direct link there to every single textbook that we've adopted as a county. So that if someone from the community or our parents are looking for what is the adopted textbook, we can click right on that. It opens it up and it tells you what the textbook is, the publication year, et cetera, for all of those courses. So that's it for Year at a Glance.
Perfect, thank you.
All right, thank you all very much. I just appreciate all your work. And the program specialist, you have something, Bridget?
This is beyond, I'm so excited about this. I think this is so great. I cannot thank you. I know Mrs. Rose, you brought this up, and I know another parent I know brought it up too. I think it is going to be so valuable, and the fact that you guys were able to put this together in such a short amount of time, on top of everything else, I'm speechless and so excited. So thank you.
When is it going to be online for Sarasota?
Shirley, it's online right now. The phase 2 hasn't taken place yet. The promotional piece hasn't taken it. There's a rollout plan to our stakeholders.
I put in sarasotacountyschools.net/YAG, and I got the student progression plan, program specialist, and the St. John, you're at a glance pacing guide, St. Johns County. I don't know what that came up for.
Try www.sarasotacountyschools/yeah.
Okay, I think that's all the questions we have. But again, this is a great tool, wonderful for our students. It would have been great before I signed my granddaughter up for middle school, because I don't know what those courses were all about.
Exactly.
Great job, team.
Well, again, thank you all very much, and thank you to the program specialists as well. I know that they worked very, very hard on this, and it's very, very, very good. Thank you. Okay, next is our student progression plan, and I know we have some highlights there, especially with changes in the, since we had the legislative session, there's always a few changes into our student progression plan, along with clarity in that plan that needs to happen. So I'll turn that over to Chris.
Go ahead, and I'm gonna hand it off very quickly over there to Catherine and a team who work behind the scenes to go ahead and make sure that the adjustments needed to be made were made. And so she'll share a brief overview with you.
Yeah, and I did want to start by saying thank you to every department up here as well as our schools. They help inform the changes that are made annually, and without them, there's no way that we would have all the updates that we have annually. So that's important to know. I am kind of the keeper of information, but all of our departments work together to get this done. The other piece that I wanted to mention while we're getting started is that we are still currently in the window for public input. That window goes until October 9th at 4:30, and comments can be submitted to karen.buren@sarasotacountyschools.net. After that window closes, then we will put a request for an agenda item at a future meeting for final approval. But we will take the input provided by stakeholders and review that input and determine if there's placement in our plan. So now to the plan and the overview of changes. Most of our changes were really just clarifications in nature. If you look at the general information sections, for attendance, we removed any reference to remote learners since we're not using remote learners currently, and added a reference to our return to learn document. For assessment, we did add a few clarifying terms into our assessment section. We did move a section of English language learners on page 15. We added it to the beginning general information section because it was included in our ESE section, but we wanted to put it where it really should live with our other ESOL information. As I look through, In elementary, we did revise some language to currently reflect what's on our student report cards. In middle school, we just revised with some assessment information. Similar to high school, in high school, we did add reference to our ACE curriculum and IB curriculum diploma options. We're seeing more and more students graduate with that option, so we felt like it was very important to include as one of our Florida standard diploma options. As we look into the ESE section, we did have a few changes there, but most of those changes were just to update our language. For the first bullet you see, that really just changed the language to make sure that we were specifically referencing who could administer the assessments. And this adds for the option of interns who are under the supervision of certified psychologists to be able to offer the assessments. It did also add an additional assessment to the gifted magnet section, the Kaufman assessment, and provided a very specific date for when all students who are interested in a gifted magnet need to have their testing completed by, which that date will be updated annually. It removed information about standard and modified curriculum, and it removed a reference to special diploma. In the state of Florida, we do not offer a special diploma, so I think that had just been long overlooked, so we did remove it to get that up to date. In the acceleration section, we did update our middle school math placement criteria, which we do annually. We work with iReady to figure out what the correct number should be annually and update it accordingly. In the virtual instruction, they really just clarified their current practice and added, I believe there was one section where it had just referenced counselors, and we added administrators just to make sure we were being inclusive of everybody who might be involved. And finally, in Appendix A, this is the only one that really linked directly to statutory language. We did Appendix A is where we address our required instruction, and so we updated that section to reflect the current statutory language. So that is the updates. Do we have any questions from you right now as a board or anything that we should be considering? I like it.
I have one question on the high school graduation requirements. What is it that we're requiring versus what the state requires versus what is average out there for other states?
So as the District of Sarasota, we require 2 extra credits for graduation. So Sarasota is
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Sorry, Sarasota is a 26 credit graduation option. A standard diploma from the state of Florida is 24. And then you can get into some other options like the Excel or the CTE pathway, which typically are about 16. The early graduation standard diploma is 24 credits as well. So we are 2 credits above what would be considered standard for the state of Florida.
Thank you. Any other questions from anyone?
All right. Thank you very much. And I know that like you said, Catherine, that'll be out on the webpage for review and comment until October 9th. Okay. So anyone can go out and view that and give us feedback. Appreciate that. Thank you. And then, yes, ma'am. So then, let's see, the next item is our math adoption timeline. This year we have our math adoption. Last year was ELA, this year's math, and just wanted to make sure you as the board had that information so you know what we're doing along the way and the committees that we put together and how all that works and what the timeline looks like. So with that, turn that back over to Chris.
Yep, and again, following suit, I'm going to hand it off over to Sue, and Rob Manugian, who works obviously with our instructional materials, is not available today, but is working feverishly behind the scenes. And again, we had a very successful adoption with ELA. We're looking forward to replicating that for this year for math, and it is a K-12 adoption. So Sue.
Yes, absolutely. So as you know, we are on a 5-year adoption cycle. And so this year being K-12 mathematics, you'll see on the first slide there what we are adopting for elementary will be K through 5. 6 through 8 will include our regular and advanced courses for grades 6 and 7, as well as pre-algebra, which is our grade 8 course. And then we will partner with high school for algebra and geometry, which is offered in the middle school and the high schools. In addition to that, at high school, we will be adopting for Algebra 2 and Math for College Algebra, which was formerly known as Math for College Readiness. The committee selection is really, really important to this process. We will have voting members to the committee as well as non-voting members. Those voting members are made up of the teachers themselves and other school staff such as liaisons. Those staff members are recommended by their principal, and they serve really as the voice or leader to get as much participation from all of their colleagues at the school as possible in closely reviewing these materials, completing rubrics, and coming back as informed as possible to be the voice of their school. We also have people at the district that work on this, starting with our program specialist at all 3 levels. They start the process by vetting the state resources from the beginning and narrowing that selection. And then we also have experts from ESOL, ESE, and IT that have a different lens in which they're looking at those materials. And then most importantly, we also include community members. We really feel it's important to have the lens of the community involved in this and making sure that our parents also have access to review these materials and provide feedback to the committee before we actually go to a final consensus building process. So you can see we have basically fall, winter, and spring as our timeline. Right now, we're creating the rubric that we'll use to analyze those materials, and we are working with other counties across the state to make sure that we're all on board in preparation for our transition to fully implement best standards next year. The committees are being formed also, and then the public online access will go live, and we'll address that in the timeline in just a minute. Excuse me. Over the winter then, basically the committees review the final selections. Those samples are sent to the school sites for that review so that they can view everything both digitally and in print. And then we will come back together to make those consensus building processes, bring it to you, the board, as to what their final decision is. We will then post that for review again for 30 days and any public comment. And we will bring that back to a board meeting if there is comment before we go to final approval and moving forward with our purchase in the spring to make sure we have all of those materials in hand prior to the end of the school year for teacher additions and student additions before the school year begins. So if you look more closely at the timeline, I've put a couple of arrows there for targeted dates. November 17th is when we will have the public access. So that's when our community will be able to go in and look at those materials closely and begin that feedback process. December 8th, then, we will bring that to the board meeting for public comment. And then if you move over into January, is when we will send our final selection to Dr. Asplin and look for final board approval on February 9th. That goes then for public review, and then the board hears formal objections if there are any. We haven't had any in the last few years, so we're hopeful that our teachers are making a really informed decision in this process, and then the purchase begins. So I think we met your lunch timeline by just a couple minutes. Any questions on the math adoption? All right, well, thank you very much, everyone.
Karen has a question.
Sure.
I just want to thank you for the work of the curriculum department. I only have one word, and Mr. Renoff and Dr. Asplin is outstanding, particularly with the year at a glance. I know I initiated that, and Dr. Asplin popped up and said he was already in the midst of that. I consider the work a win-win-win, and I love the triple positives for teachers, parents, and students, and will definitely pay off. As you look at access curriculum and ESE and adding it, if you would please consider emphasizing the life skills portion of that. There's still confusion in the community of our transition from what was perceived as leaning life skills for our cognitively impaired, so that there's real clarity with that. I think it would be an asset, and I just really, really want to thank you for the work that you do. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we all do. Thank you all so very much.
Thank you for the opportunity to want to showcase the work that they are doing. And again, I can't I can't echo it enough. The work that they do behind the scenes to support our teachers and our leaders and our students at schools, I mean, it's just phenomenal how blessed we are. So thank you so
And
much.
if teachers want to be on the committee, they should let their principals know.
Absolutely, and we will make sure that it is publicized out there for parents so that, again, they know how and when they can go ahead and give input into this process for sure.
Great. You got it on the head, Dr. Asplin. And we are going to recess now for half hour for lunch.